Thank you, Mayor Davis. The City Council and Redevelopment Agency met in closed session relative to the items that were posted on the closed session agenda. First, with respect to existing litigation involving Leslie Pollard versus City of Emeryville. Update was provided and direction was given to the city attorney. Next, with respect to Leslie Pollard versus City of Emeryville, an arbitration proceeding, update was provided, no action taken. That item is now completed. Next, with respect to Woodfin Suites Hotel versus City of Emeryville, an update was provided, no action taken. That matter has been dismissed pursuant to an order of the court. And then finally, in the matter of Maria Martinez et al., on behalf of themselves and all others similarly situated, City of Emeryville intervener versus Woodfin Suites Hotel, an update was provided, no action was taken. Next, with respect to real property negotiations relative to freeway lease areas underneath I-580, the parties negotiating being the Redevelopment Agency and the State of California Department of Transportation. An update was provided and direction was given to the Redevelopment Director, Mr. O'Keefe, relative to the agency's authority, to make a bid for lease of that property on a motion by Councilmember Cass, is second by Councilmember Fricke, and a 3-to-1 vote. Councilmember Bukowski was not present at the time. Next, with respect to public employment regarding the position of city manager, an update was provided and direction was given by the city council to the city attorney relative to scheduling interviews for that open position for Saturday, February 3rd, 2007. And then finally, the City Council met in closed session to provide a performance evaluation of the interim city manager, and some feedback was provided to Mr. O'Keefe. No action was taken. And with that, I have nothing further.
Thank you, Mr. Biddle. The special session is adjourned. We'll now open the Management of Emeryville Services Authority. Let the record reflect that all members of the authority are present. Are there any citizens to be heard on items not on this agenda?
Hello, may I be heard? My name is Eugene Sway.
Eugene, I think you want to wait until the City
okay.
Council. This is the Management of Emeryville Services. Do I hear a motion? Do you want to? On this particular agenda? Can you wait until the redevelopment agenda? Thank you, Andre. I appreciate that. Do I hear a motion on the consent calendar?
Move approval. Second.
Call the roll, please.
Authority Member Bukowski.
Aye.
Authority Member Fricke.
Aye.
Member Cassis.
Aye.
Vice Chair Atkin.
Aye.
Chair Davis.
Aye. This meeting is adjourned. The regular meeting of the Emeryville Redevelopment Agency is called to order. Let the record reflect that all members of the agency are present. We will also be opening the Emeryville City Council agenda at the same time. Same thing applies. All members are present. Let's have the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. We do have special orders of the day, and I think, is Peter here? If you could come, this is under the City Council agenda.
Good evening, agency and council members. We're here this evening to recognize businesses in the city of Emeryville that have been through the Alameda County Green Business Certification Program and have been certified during the last 12 months. So I'd like to recognize those businesses that are here this evening and have them come up and receive their certificate of appreciation from the city and hand it to them and have them meet all of you. So first, can we have Scan Art here, I believe? I'll let them introduce themselves. Your certificate of appreciation.
Thank you very much. I'm Mark Randall, Marketing and Business Development for ScanArt, and we appreciate this very much, the opportunity.
Why don't you just tell us a little bit about what your business does?
Yeah, ScanArt is a pre-press for the printing industry. That means we take all the digital files of things that people need printed, and we get those ready to go to the print shop.
All right.
We have a little bit of equipment that uses water and wastewater and so forth, and we recycle quite a bit of materials too.
Great. And where are you located?
Right next door in the Fisher Body Building,
Right.
Oh.
So,
right in the corner of Haven. Yeah.
so it's the
Congratulations.
recycling and use
Thank
of
you.
the wastewater that qualified you, as far as you know, to receive this? Is that
That and PG&E, power consumption,
Great.
recycling.
right?
things like that.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Something we encourage, so we congratulate you.
Thank you, Peter.
Next, we have Denise Pinkston from TMG Partners for the Emeryville Public Market.
I'm Denise Pinkston with TMG Partners. In the development community, it's rare to have enough time and enough energy from the public sector to really do something meaningful for the environment aside from the buildings that we own and operate. So being able to work with the city and the county of Alameda, the Stop Waste folks, to implement a pretty innovative composting program where all of the food waste now at the public market goes into the compost instead of the dumpster. We have set up recycling bins purchased by the city for each of the vendors that we work together to put in there. The Stop Waste folks and the county folks trained all the vendors. They had translators go in and talk to people in several different dialects of Chinese and in Spanish, because a lot of the vendors in the public market don't speak English, and they didn't understand composting. But with a really terrific public-private partnership, the public market is coming into the 21st century and is a good example of a green business. And I have to say that part of the inspiration for me in doing this was my daughters, who's worked at their school in El Cerrito to have their school certified as a green business, where all the kids in the school recycled all of their own lunches. They now have waste-free lunches. We can't put paper or plastic forks. It's all Tupperware. And if you can't learn from your kids, you really need to rethink what you're doing. So thank you very much for this honor, and we'll see you soon.
Mayor, before she leaves, I'd like to have your kids introduced if you're comfortable.
Sure. This is my daughter Sophia, who's 11 in 5th grade in El Cerrito, and my daughter Miranda, who is 8 and in 2nd grade.
Well, welcome to the meeting.
Thank
And
you very much.
congratulations.
It's local politics.
I wanted to add one additional point about the marketplace. We calculated today that through the compost program they're doing, it's about 140 tons of material going to a compost facility instead of going to a landfill, which represents almost exactly 1% roughly of what our annual total garbage for the whole city is. So if every business in the city could divert 1%, we'd get a long way. I also wanted to mention that these, I went through a lot of torture internally about the frames for these certificates, because I didn't want to just go to a store and buy new ones. I wanted to buy something made out of recycled materials first. Then in the end, I decided to go to Goodwill and actually buy reused frames. So that's why each
Very
one of them
good.
looks different. Next, we have Paulding and Company, a creative kitchen.
Hi, I'm Terry Paulding, owner of Paulding and Company. Some of you know me because I've catered some of your mayor's dinners. I'm a caterer and cooking teacher, and I found that the idea of becoming a green business fit very well with how I operate my business. And I also found that the certification process was a great learning experience. The help from PG&E, from East Bay Mud, from the city, from Pam Evans, to focus on ways to improve my already pretty green practices and organic practices was very important. I do compost my food waste, have for many years, and I do it directly into my garden composter at home. I'm a pretty small business. And I also do buy and encourage my students and everybody to purchase organic and directly from the farmer. And there are many other ways, I don't want to go through all of them, that I have implemented green business practices. But I really thank the city for recognizing the efforts that all of us make.
Congratulations.
I do also want to recognize Pam Evans, who is here this evening from the Alameda County Green Business Program. And Pam can maybe just say, before I do the next one, we got just a 1 or 2 sentence update on where we are with the Green Business Program in the county.
Well, thank you, Mayor Davis and council members, for once again recognizing the commitment that Emeryville green businesses make to their communities and the environment. Where we are is we are going to be celebrating our 10th year of certifying businesses in Alameda County. We've certified over 300 businesses here in the county, and Bay Area-wide, the same model has been adopted in several other counties and even beyond the Bay Area. There are now over 800 green businesses in the Bay Area. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Pam. After this evening, we will have certified 17 businesses in Emeryville, I believe. So.
That's great.
Next, we have Bob with the Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, Peter. Nice frame. Thank you, Mayor. Bob Cantor, Emeryville Chamber of Commerce. Just quickly, this is an important program. We've been delighted to embrace this program. We've promoted it now through the Chamber for at least the last 3 years. We host a banner ad on our website at no cost, which we're happy to do to the Green Business Program that connects to it. We promote it in our email and broadcast fax messages. And finally, we've done it so much, our board, Jason and John Gooding and some others, Peter Lyon, said, Bob, you're promoting it so much, the Chamber needs to become a green business ourselves, and we have. We've gone through the certification program, and we are now, as Peter just indicated, a certified green business. We're delighted to do it. We proudly have the seal on the window of our office. It's a great program. I have to say, Pam Evans is wonderful. She's 100% dedicated to this. Peter, too. We have very, very good people who shepherd you through the system. They make it easy. And we want to congratulate all the Emeryville businesses, many of whom are Chamber members like Terry Paulding, for adopting this program. And we're going to continue to push it and work with our businesses to get more certified. Thank you very much. We're honored to receive this. Thank you, Peter. Very nice job.
Do we have Baker Villar Architects here? Yes.
You know, following on the heels of the Golden Globe Awards, Peter, we got to work in a little more pizzazz into this program.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Hayden. I'm with Baker Villar Architects. I'm the director of the Educational Design Studio. And
my name is Gwendolyn Torres, and I'm a designer with Baker Villar Architects. Also, I kind of nagged them about getting this stuff together to go through it. So.
Good for you.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we feel we've long, for many years, have incorporated green design in our building projects, and now this gets us a chance to integrate it into our workplace. So we were really delighted about the program, and thanks to you all for it. Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
It certainly puts you in a good spot to talk seriously with clients about doing the same thing when you can say we've done it. So great work. Thanks. Peter, is there a complete list on ETV that we could incorporate there of the Bill 17?
No, not yet, but we
after
certainly
tonight?
could do that. Yes.
Yeah, that'd be a good thing to.
I don't know
also
if
on our website. Is that something that we tout on our
we
website?
do have the Green Business Program on our website in the generic kind of form about how to get more information about it, but it would be good, I think, to have, and also Bob does keep a list on his website of the businesses in town.
Yeah, let's get it onto ours, at the 17 businesses after tonight that'll be there. That's
Okay.
good information.
Now, I don't know if anybody else is here. We had V Horticultural Garden Design was actually certified in the beginning of last year, but they hadn't received their certificate yet. Alternative Mortgage Sources and Studio Bergtraum Architects. I don't think any of them are here, so, but I wanted to recognize them. And maybe next year I'll get Janet Jackson or somebody here to...
Peter, thank you for all your work. It's a good program.
At least a flashy outfit. Would be good. Mayor, if I could just say before, are you something else on this?
No.
You know, the people that were nice enough to come and get the awards, don't feel embarrassed if you're ready to leave. I mean, you know, staying for these meetings can be, we always like people here, but by the same token, we understand if you leave, so. Thank you for
Are
coming.
there any citizens to be heard?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Last meeting, there was a little altercation that I caught just off my ear. So this was about Councilman Cassis making a reference about his public support for Patrick O'Keefe as city manager. And there was I would say, a mild critic from the Donahue, Brian Donahue. And I would say that both Donahue are a respectable person in the community of Emeryville. The artist, which is a sculptor, has made historical contribution to the art in Emeryville, and Brian has been active in the critics of Emeryville, and he's very observant from what I could see. And of course, there was an exchange of words that did not seem to be applicable in public. But my experience in this is that when an opinion is made about from a public official, in which Mr. Cassis is a veteran in it, and that I would say that he's a public servant and he's not like Donald Trump who only answers to money, but here we have a situation where a prejudice has been laid on a preference. And myself, I see that I have missed many job employment because as one employment what do you call that, resource, you know, human resource told me, without knowing who I was, that that man, we have to keep him out of the interview, because if he makes it to interview, we have to give him the job, and that was me. So when I took the issue right away, then and that was with San Francisco, with Fresno State College. When I take the issue and blast them that I would take them to court because of that, that the human resource person was fired, and what was outrageous, because she expressed her truth about it. And I want to say something about
can you bring your comments to a close,
yes,
Mr. Carpio?
Yeah, and I really like you appreciate if you don't keep interrupting me all the time. You haven't interrupting any of the Spanish people who spoke here about their grievance, and
You
they
have
were speaking
5
for a long
minutes
time.
under citizens to be heard.
Okay, but let me finish, and I want to be finished. The Donahue made a contribution in a two person there, you see, and they were both arguing, and in the mind of the sculptor, he wanted to express something. And when I see there, I see two men who are fighting word, and I thought that one was Bukowski and the other one was Cassis. And they were really at each other's throat, perhaps for you, Nora, you know, maybe,
Thank you,
I don't
Mr.
know,
Carpio.
to please you. You know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other citizens to be heard?
Hi, good evening, council members. My name is Brooke Anderson. I'm with the East Bay Alliance for a Sustainable Economy. First, I just wanted to thank the city for its defense of Measure C and its support for the rights of workers who've filed administrative complaints with the city. We really appreciate the city's commitment to fairness and to living wages for workers. And tonight, I wanted to address the regulations and procedures to enforce Measure C. We believe.
Pardon me, ma'am, that is an agenda item, and you're able to speak to it on the agenda item.
At what point
When
would
it
that
comes
come
up on the
When it's on the
agenda.
agenda.
Okay, and I'm not allowed to speak to it during citizens'
No,
input?
this is for
Items not.
items not on the agenda.
Got it, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other members, citizens to be heard? Okay. Do I hear a motion on the consent calendar?
Hold on.
I want to remove C, E, and F.
I want to pull B for a misspelling correction.
Is that Marcelin?
Yes.
We got that.
Okay.
Okay.
Never mind then.
Items, do I hear a motion on A and D?
So moved.
Does that include the city council agenda resolution? It's the same thing, okay.
It does.
A
So
second.
that's, call the roll, please.
Agency Member Bukowski.
Aye.
Agency Member Fricke.
Aye.
Agency Member Cassis.
Aye.
Vice Chair Atkin.
I have a question here. This city-owned, no, never mind. This is a different thing. I.
And
Aye.
Chair Davis.
Okay, item C, Councilmember Cassis.
Yes, Pat, I don't see Amy here.
I'll handle it.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I would have liked to have communicated with her today, but I just wasn't able to do it. I was just going to suggest to my colleagues, I think we've kind of been going at the same rate of support for ECAP for some time now. And so I guess what I would like to see us do is increase, is make a change in the allocation, going from $2,000 to $4,000 to ECAP and reducing the housing rehabilitation program by that $2,000.
Is that a motion?
It is a motion.
Wait, before you do that,
Yeah,
please,
but
if I also had a similar inquiry from another council member.
I'll identify myself. I was the other one.
All right.
So there's a certain amount of money that's allowed to be spent on administrative costs, staffing in support of the community development program. And over the years, we have always decided to spend that administrative money on these two programs rather than on our staff. And we just provide our staff to this program funded by other sources. There's a maximum amount that you can spend on those administrative costs. I can't remember the exact percentage, but it's less than 10%. And that percentage hasn't changed over the years.
Oh.
And our allocation has remained relatively stable over the years and hasn't changed either. So I don't think that from this source of money, if you want to spend more money on those two programs, I think we are up against the cap and we wouldn't be able to do so. So what I suggested is that you have your annual allocation of funds to various community programs. And if you wanted to, at the next time you undertake that exercise of budgeting, you could include potential increases to these two as part of that.
Right. If I'd had a chance to call today, I could have gotten that cleared up then. So thank you. I'll withdraw my motion and move approval.
Second.
I had a comment on C, and it's a very minor one. The item calls for money to be spent on a public restroom at the future park.
Dutro Park.
Well, whatever we're going to call it. It's at the corner of, takes up a city block, Hollis and 61st. And I think it's a good use, or a good use of the money for a bathroom there. But there was a sentence that said, restroom facility will be located towards the eastern end of the park near the playground. I know that we're going to have another opportunity to look at how this park is designed, but that location of that bathroom relative to the playground I think is a crucial one. So I just want to alert my colleagues to the need to really look closely at where we put that bathroom. And with that, I move the item.
Is there a second?
Well, I already moved.
Oh,
the
okay,
item.
okay.
Motion and
Is
second.
there any exception to this motion?
No.
Passes unanimously. Okay, and you had item E?
Yes, I just, and Mike, I need to have you, or city attorney involved in on this. Pat, the reason I brought this up is again, because of my employment with AC Transit and recusing myself, the need to recuse myself on anything that relates to AC Transit. What I can't tell from the scope of services here is whether this addition to the Ferguson contract has anything to do with the efforts to acquire the AC Transit bus yard for the city. I'm sorry, for the school expansion.
My understanding is that it's just efforts to acquire funding for the ECCL in general. I don't believe it's location specific.
Okay. Is there anything with regard to my employment with AC Transit that would prohibit me from voting on this,
I
in
don't
your
believe
opinion?
so.
All right, thank you. I'd move approval of the item.
I had a question on this item. I noticed that in previous approvals, we had the transit center listed, and we no longer have that listed. So when it just says various other projects, what projects will we be talking about there?
Well, it's basically your capital improvement program. So we're going to develop a list of projects that are kind of the highest priority ones, but essentially any project on your capital improvement program that could be funded from federal funds is something worth considering.
All right, I'll second Dick's motion.
Is there any objection to the motion? Motion passes unanimously. Item 7A, a
No,
resolution.
I'm sorry, I also removed item F.
Well, this is an informational request.
I know, but I
You want more information?
You want more
well,
information?
no, what I want to do is highlight this. This is a report to us on, basically on Bay Street, the shopping center, and what the redevelopment agency has put into there, and what the returns are projected to be and what they have been so far. It's an incredibly informative report that I think goes to deal with a lot of the misconceptions that are out there that people voice sometimes about our large financial involvement in that project, and why we did what we did, and how that's panning out. So what I would like to see is, rather than this just be something that goes via the consent calendar and then gets filed away, I think this is important information I would like to see gotten out to the public. And, you know, under previous situations, I would ask that it be published in the Emery.News, but since I think our sponsorship of that is either ended or about to end, that's probably not the appropriate place. So I'd like to see us, as one council member, I'd like to see this on ETV, and have this as a document that's available for people to get on the website if they're interested in looking at developments, and specifically Side A, expenses versus income kinds of information. If people have any other thoughts about how to get this out, I'd certainly like to listen to them, but I think it's important that people be informed about this rather than having it just get filed away.
Any other comments? The only comment I have to make, Dick, is that to put a document of this size on ETV, no one's going to read it. We will have to think of other ways to disseminate it, or work with people to get the basic facts there. I'd like to see a derivative, just a bullet point sheet that goes with the highlights on that.
Sure, that's
It could be
fine.
put on the web, though. It should be put on the web.
Well, it could be, certainly could be included on the web. It's on there anyhow, isn't it?
We could do not this level of information. We could do a bullet point summary that's included on the web, and if you would like to continue this item and make it an administrative item on a future agenda, then staff can provide you with a staff report that summarizes it, the information, and then of course that will be rebroadcast as council meetings are rebroadcast on ETV. So.
I think there's value in doing that.
Well,
would
it's
say
a
do it.
very valuable document
Yeah.
because, as you said, there is a lot of misinformation that has been disseminated in the community.
Well, when we've spent $28 million of redevelopment money for a small city to make Bay Street happen, that's a pretty significant thing, and the voters ought to know what they're getting for that. So I would like to see us I would request that that be placed on a future agenda. Doesn't have to be the next one if we're not ready, but I'd like to see it taken up. And with that, I guess we don't need to
No.
pass it.
Can I just make a comment? If we're going to put it on a future agenda, it would be nice to know what the present value is of the loan agreement. If you went to a bank, there's no way that you'd get the loan terms that the city gave to Madison Marquette. So the staff report suggests that we just made this loan. Well, that was not an arm's length transaction. There was a subsidy in that, and that's not really quantified in this report. In other words, there was value associated with that loan because there's no way a bank would give such a loan.
That's a
So
fair
it'd be
comment.
nice to have that number too. I mean, I did a little number crunching, there's no way to precisely calculate it, but it's in the neighborhood of $10 million, I think.
Pat, is that something that could be done?
Pat, could you make sure to thank Michelle for her writing?
I will. Thank you.
Okay, can we move along to item 7A, resolution of the redevelopment agency authorizing the interim executive director to execute a third amendment to the loan agreement between the agency and the Tamblins. Do I hear a motion on this?
I have to make a recusal statement. That is that when I was an associate at Harper & Associates, I represented the Tamblins in their lease negotiations, so I'm going to recuse myself.
All right.
I move approval.
Mr. Biddle, did you want to make any comments on that? Do I hear a second to?
Second.
All right. Is there any objection to the motion? Being none, passes unanimously. Status report on the South Bayfront pedestrian bicycle bridge. Ignacio?
Good evening, Chair Davis, members of the agency. Tonight we'll give a status report on the planning of the South Bayfront pedestrian bicycle bridge. Can I have the monitor on the screen, please?
Did you hear that, Ignacio?
The messages that you may need to refresh.
If you need a hand, Ignacio, let me know.
Control yourself.
The last time the pedestrian bicycle bridge was on in a public forum was during the June 2005 agency meeting. At that meeting, staff provided a cost analysis on the proposed bridge, which involved looking at different ramp lengths and widths. Essentially, there was a long ramp design, a short ramp design, and a 8-foot width and a 10-foot width. There was also a report on the maintenance of the Amtrak station elevator. The estimated costs of the bridge itself, including the stairs and the elevators, were presented. And there was also some discussion on fire and building code issues on the proposed design. At that meeting, were also certain uncertainties provided that related to the design of the bridge and the ramps, including the status of the Sherwin-Williams site and redevelopment, as well as the Union Pacific Railroad easement and spur that goes into the Sherwin-Williams property. The direction given at that meeting was for staff to continue negotiations with UPRR to seek funding for the project, to finalize the Sherwin-Williams development, and at that time Sherwin-Williams had the proposed redevelopment project, and to continue the design of the greenway through the site. And at that time in 2005, it was anticipated that it would be another 3 to 5 years before we could get development started on the site. Since that time, there have been new developments. Sherwin-Williams plant has closed. They've actually pulled the redevelopment plans, and the remediation plan is undergoing review with DTSC. At that time, they were the lead agency was the regional board, so there's been a couple of steps back in that process. At the same time, the spur, which is the spur is no longer active, though it might be used for the remediation of the site. UPRR has determined that they do not want to sell the yard at that time, and when I mean the yard, I will just...
Again, we're talking about the railroad, right?
Right, the railroad.
Okay.
When I talk about the yard, it's that orange section which is adjacent to the proposed Greenway, the Horton Street Landing Park. So it's that strip which is adjacent to the proposed park. As well as there might be a need for an easement for the bridge itself. There's been significant progress on the Greenway. Portions, the section north of 59th Street have all been developed except for the portion adjacent to the Glass House. At the time we were developing the bridge, Chiron, then Chiron, now Novartis, was preparing their designs for the park, which is called Horton Landing, and it may be appropriate to revise those plans given the ramp designs. In October, the CIP, there was an appropriation for the project at $8.47 million, and the staff has been applying for grants for the project from to various sources. The $8.47 million considers the long bridge design, which is what you have in front of you, which is a two-span design. And there have also been other developments, which I will bring up in the course of the rest of my presentation. Now, there has been consensus in these discussions. Basically, there is a desire to proceed with the design which is in front of you, which is the two-span project. And there's been
Can I just interrupt it? You're saying there's consensus on that?
Well, at that time.
Okay, sorry.
At that time. We're sort of, I'm going to get back to where we might need additional discussions. So at that time, there was a favor for this design. And there was a preference for the extended ramps at 5% grade and 10 feet wide. And I think the 5% was an ADA accessible design.
Well, let me just say that 5% is not mandated by the ADA, but it's the threshold under which you can turn an elevation without having a landing. Okay, so that means that allows for the ramp, which is not even called a ramp if it's less than 5 or less. It allows it to be more organic, because if you are above 5, then every time you turn, there has to be a landing. So that's why I believe the Berkeley Bridge is so beautiful in that they do not exceed that 5%. So they can have a very nicely flowing ramp on both sides.
Thank you. This is just an early drawing of the two-span design. And this is one of the early renditions of the long version of the ramp.
Single span.
Yes. Now, and this is a rendition of the long span bridge. This is a later version that was presented to council. And I think this was the last drawing that was presented, the drawing presented at the June 2005 meeting.
Ignacio, just so if there's people looking, the difference now is that, and this was a lot of John's doing before he was on the council, was to suggest these ramps. So that's what the big change we're seeing here is ramps on both sides.
Correct.
Rather than just this stairway elevator thing that,
Right. The early, and I will come up, discuss further the ramps and the elevator and stairs. And
Right.
they're coming in succeeding slides.
okay.
Now, there are other considerations that have to be made that were not issues in 2005. And Hank can elaborate more on this. Is one issue is the ADA and as it relates to stairs, elevators, and ramps. Our understanding is that there will be new guidelines on ADA, and it might affect the way we have our ramps designed as they are now. So, in which case, there might be it might be appropriate to discuss whether the ramps be shortened and an elevator be added, or other ways that you can equalize access among bicyclists, pedestrians, and those with disabilities. And how the current, the ramps affect Horton Street, the Horton Landing design. Novartis is, for one, is concerned about the current design of the ramps as being close to the PDU building. The PDU building is a manufacturing building which has FDA approval, and they have concerns about the security of this building and the ramps being close to it. There are also concerns that the ramp design itself takes a substantial portion of the width of the park in that section where the ramp exists. And Novartis has proposed an alternative, and I just bring this up for discussion. What you have in front of you is the green is the schematic for what the ramps are proposed as, and the blue line is where the pedestrian, where the path would be. And Novartis...
The Ackroyd path, you mean?
Yeah, the Ackroyd path. And Novartis has proposed 2 ramps extending north and south. And the dotted line on the south there is where Sherwin-Williams had proposed a roadway leading into their proposed development. So the ramp was lining up with that proposed road. There are concerns with this suggestion, being that the ramp length it will be a shorter ramp that is, which probably exceed the 5%. And there would not be a good connection to the 53rd Street pedestrian access, which was the goal of the earlier designs. So given all those things going on, all those design considerations, staff is recommending that the agency retain consultants to complete the preliminary design, taking the ramps, the Horton Landing Park, code issues, and security into consideration. This will involve a civil engineering firm, an architectural firm, and a pedestrian bike consultant that can provide a third party and a sort of neutral body to evaluate all the considerations as they relate to the bike ped and ADA issues. And as we develop those designs, we will go before the bike ped subcommittee, the planning commission, and before the agency and council. And also continue to begin negotiations with Sherwin-Williams on the spur leading into their property, as well as with UPRR for the easements and the right-of-way. And that concludes my presentation.
Ignacio, do you have any kind of a tentative timeline for how we're going to proceed on this?
Well, we could begin selecting consultants almost immediately. We have them identified.
I think all of us on the council are interested in seeing this project move forward in a timely fashion. And do I have agreement here that we'd like to see at least a tentative timeline for the steps that we're going to be taking and the dates that we're going to be taking these steps. We'll have agreement on that with the council.
Mayor Davis, I agree with that. One caveat, though, is that this is a project of over $8 million, and I'm not comfortable giving staff the approval tonight for their design team. I mean, a contract...
Oh, I don't think there's any, is there a suggestion here?
That's what
Yes, there's a suggestion for a design team in the
it
staff
said.
report.
It said, staff recommends the agency direct staff to return with a professional services contract with a design team that includes Mark Thomas for civil engineering, Charles Group International for architectural design, and the Berkeley Traffic Safety Center for bike and pedestrian design requirements. I'm not comfortable with that, given the amount of money involved and given the fact that we did a whole RFP process for a $15,000 contract. This is $8 million. I think we should do the same.
Well, John, what would you suggest that we spend a little more time on the front end here and perhaps take this to the Public Works Committee for consultant selection? What do you have in mind here?
Well, the Public Works Committee had a process for selecting a consultant for that $15,000 contract. I
Right.
thought that worked well. I didn't think that it was very time-consuming, and I thought that it was fruitful. So I would like a similar
Well, do we have the
process.
support of the other council members to pursue this?
Well, you know, every day that bridge is not open, that Bay Street's losing 1,000 customers that would be walking over it, so I think it needs to get expedited.
What is the process you're talking about, John, just quickly, without a lot of detail?
Request for proposals, essentially, or maybe scope, well, some process that solicits interest from professionals other than, these that were listed here. Just get ideas and bids.
This is an important project. I agree with you. Do we have the concurrence of the council? You have your direction. Do you need anything else, Ignacio?
Well, I have one question, though, about what we're directing them to do. This was like 3 different teams or 3 different companies that
No,
had pieces.
it's one design
consultant
team.
team.
One is an engineer, one is an architect, and the third one is new. It's a
The safety.
bike and pedestrian design
Right.
requirements.
So I guess what my question is the RFP, as you conceive of it with this suggestion, is it going to solicit proposals for individual segments of that? Could somebody come in and just say, my company does bike pedestrian safety and we'll bid on that?
No, what
Or they
happened
have to
with-
come in as a combined team?
What happened
a
with
proposal?
the $15,000 thing was that there were documents submitted by these firms, and they were a team already. So it was a team submitting. So, for example, the one that we chose was a combination bicycle, pedestrian, expert, and engineer.
Okay.
So,
All right, so Pat, is that what you see us doing then?
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is that you would delegate this matter to the Public Works Committee. We would come up with a scope of services of the type of team members that we want, that the committee would approve. We'd go out and solicit those proposals. We'd get several back, and the Public Works Committee would go through those, select one, and make a recommendation to the council. We would bring that contract then back to the council level for actual approval. That would be all the elements of the design team. And if I could add one other that is not in the staff report that Fire Chief Cutright just brought to my attention today that I think is worth discussing also at the Public Works Committee is, as you recall, in 2005 when we had this discussion about the ramps, there was some concern about the proximity of the ramps to the parking structure, particularly next to Bay Street, and we think it would be appropriate to have someone who's an expert in mitigating that proximity and coming up with whatever kind of safety feature we would need to have to make the ramp work. So that might be a fourth person or fourth element of the design team.
Yeah, I'm okay with all of that, except for I don't know how the rest of the council feels, but after the Public Works Committee comes up with the basic guidelines that they're ready to go out with for the RFP, I'd like to see that back here for all of us to.
We could do that. It's up to you,
To
however
look
you
at.
want to do it. You can delegate it, or
Yeah.
you can bring it back to the council level.
No, I'd like to see it. I'm not on the Public Works Committee, and even if I go to that meeting, I can't vote at that committee, so I'd like to see
All
that
right,
here.
thank you, Ignacio.
I mean, is that okay with
I'd
everybody?
be
or-
satisfied if the Public Works Committee just took care of it.
We'll bring it back. Is there anyone who'd like to comment on this agenda item? Mr. Sway.
Hi, my name is Eugene Sway. I'm principal of Sway Design and Research in Emeryville. We've been here since 1989. I do international work in Europe, Africa, China, as well as the United States. I'm also happen to be the sole elected president of the PFA at Emeryville High School, and have worked with a number of engineers in the Emeryville area, as well as in San Francisco, on international projects and local projects. I have a particular interest in this project because I think that the bridge could be something far more than what we have looked at in the past. And I'll put it this way, that if you had a chance to create a project that paid homage to the past, as well as create a vision for the future of Emeryville, and became a work of art or a destination in itself, what would that object look like? Also, could this bridge be more than just a pedestrian or bicycle walkway? Could it also be a historical and educational tool for the citizens and for the visitors to our area? And could it also be a opportunity for us to set a new precedent for the city of Emeryville? I go to so many of these hearings, and I hear people comment on how our buildings are quite boring in Emeryville. They're sick and tired of having another boring building. Well, what if we had a chance to create something truly remarkable, something that would be, shall we say, globally significant for the city of Emeryville, to create a bridge that is something unprecedented for the future? So I started thinking about this, and for those that aren't familiar, can I use the overhead
Sure.
this way?
It's 15 cents a page.
Well, I'm also a Watergate resident, and I see many of my fellow residents here. Here's what we're talking about, this area. This is the future Horton Park and the Bay shopping area. And we're crossing the railroad tracks, which are about 200 feet long. And what I came up with initially is this design, which in plan resembles a seashell, which I thought was quite appropriate since the human beings that resided here way before we did thrived on a seashell culture and on marine life. And so what this is a bridge that is much more than a bridge. It's an experience. It's a chance for pedestrians to experience something completely different and exciting, hopefully. The elevation of this is this. It's 100 feet high from the ground to the ceiling, or to the top of the parabolic arch. The arch is pulled backwards at 30 degrees to create more ability, more efficiency to hold up this front end, which is a semicircular front, as you remember from the plan over there. So this arch is pulled back 30 degrees and is pulling counter to the semicircular ramp. In another sketch, you see the parabolic arch or catenary arch, and then the ramp that hangs from the arch. On top is a series of photovoltaic solar cells. And what these cells do is they create renewable energy, electricity, to all of the lights in the entire area, not just the bridge, but also the pedestrian walkways and bicycle paths leading from one neighborhood to the next neighborhood. So what you might see looks something like
Eugene,
this.
make sure you use the microphone.
Oh, sorry. What you see might be something like this, which is a series of ramps, uninterrupted, continuing up to a semicircular arch, and then spiraling down to the other side, with this parabolic form and the shiny photovoltaic solar cells on top. Something that thrusts the city of Emeryville symbolically into the future, because what you have is a wing-like, shell-like bridge that is a launching pad for the future, you might say, symbolically. And if we were to put the history of Emeryville from the first recorded human beings to the present time, and then left some space for the future, we could perhaps in mosaic form or ceramic tile form create a living history for Emeryville on that bridge, so that everyone who comes there would then be able to decipher a brief history in time. Also, here's a little sketch I did of what you might see entering that ramp or coming close to it. What you have is a series of curved pylons that have these copper totems, lighted totems on top that light up the area from above, and then these open hole continuous rails that have 4-inch holes by code, so that people can see through them, and perhaps even have recycled bottle bottoms, different colors inserted inside them. And so what you get is a living work of art, is an experience from your first visual introduction to it. You walk up through it, around it, and down to the other side, and you get the entire history of Emeryville in one walking. You also get an experience of the future. There's nothing like this bridge that I know of today. It uses a special kind of angled 30-degree angled parabolic arch system. I work with some of the most accomplished engineers in the world, and they're absolutely satisfied that this will work. And in fact, we actually did a cost estimate, and it would come well within the $7.5 to $8.5 million to create it.
Really?
Really. And so you have renewable energy, you have the history of Emeryville, you have a work of art, you have a vision of the future, and you have something that's unlike anything else in the world. It seems to me that that would be something that would make the city of Emeryville proud, and would make us it would be a message from us to the world that we are looking to the future, and that we are looking in a very imaginative way.
Thank you, Mr.
Eugene,
Swain.
it's been great to see a bunch of your sketches and ideas. Your creativity knows no bounds, it seems.
Thanks.
Could you give me a copy of that design on disc? If I give you my,
A copy of this?
if I give you my jump drive, could you put it on there?
Sure.
Great.
Sure.
Thank you
Are there
very
any
much.
questions? What I'd like from the council is, what do I need to know to continue to develop some of these ideas? Because I think they could be very valuable to the city.
Respond to the RFP that we just agreed to send out.
I mean,
Please,
we're going to have
please
it
do
be
that.
an open process, as we just agreed. But
Right.
this is fabulous. And I
Good.
thought you were going to tell us it was like double the price. I can't believe it.
Oh, no.
Thanks an awful lot,
Sure.
Eugene.
Sure.
Okay,
It's my pleasure.
communications and reports, department heads. No department heads? Agency members.
I have a number of things. Mayor
John,
Davis.
before you get into your list, is there any member of the council that could meet with Rebuilding Together on Wednesday, January 24th at 6:30? They're asking for a representative from Emeryville. It's a kickoff event. Yeah. John?
Mayor Davis, I segregated my items between.
She's asking about this.
Are you available Wednesday, the 24th?
I'm sorry, no, I wasn't paying attention.
All
I'm
right. All right.
sorry. I have to go, right?
You're delegated. No, that's all right. Go ahead.
Do you want me to go through the redevelopment agency items only, or should I go through all of the things that I have?
Just redevelopment only.
Okay. There are a couple of things that I wanted to bring to the attention of my colleagues. I asked the interim city manager about the status of changing the affordable housing requirement from 15% moderate to 5%, or no, 15% in general, and changing it to 5, 5, and 5. And so it's looks like it's going to be scheduled for a study session in February. So I look forward to that. The other question I have is for the city attorney. I remember that when we were talking about the Ambassador Laundry site, there was a question of whether it's possible to use housing funds in the agency budget for acquiring the billboard on the site. And the discussion I had with Pat O'Keefe was that if you have a project which has a certain percentage of affordable housing, that you probably should not exceed that same percentage in terms of the cost of the billboard. In other words, you don't want to take, if it's 45% affordable housing, you don't want to use housing funds beyond 45% of the cost of the billboard. And so my question to the city attorney is perhaps we could get an opinion on whether it's possible to use housing funds in that way. Not necessarily tonight, but if you could give a sense of when we could get that, that would be helpful.
Certainly, I mean, I think the short answer is I believe you can use the funds, but it has implications for what is the ultimate project that gets built there. So we will, and I know there's some disagreement amongst, practicing lawyers in this area about this issue, but I'm trying to think. I know we're trying to bring the. Do you see this related to the housing set-aside ordinance? I know you raised that issue. No?
As to when we bring it up?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of the time frame of when we'll be looking at this issue per se.
Well, we need to bring the DDA for the Ambassador Laundry back to council at some point, so it could be in that context.
Okay. Well, I know we're trying to do that, so it would have to be in a very short period of time. I'll try and shoot for the, I was going to say the next agenda, we have a shot at it since we have a 3-week period between now and the next meeting, so we'll see if we can get something for then, but if not by then, certainly the next meeting and second meeting in February.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else,
yeah.
John?
The next is that I noticed that in the monthly progress report, there was discussion about uses at the building that's behind City Hall, 4060 Hollis. And my understanding is that that's going to be back before us in February or March regarding the use of the building. So I look forward to that. The next thing is, okay, we'll talk about that. That's agendized. And the next thing is hiring a transit consultant. We chose to direct the staff back in the first meeting in December to hire a transit consultant to look at how to improve Emeryville. And so let's see, I have here that, I'm not sure when that's going to come back. Does this interim city manager have any more on that? Is that?
So we should probably do a RFP for that and bring back the scope of services for that so that we make sure that the council agency agrees on what it is that we're asking to be studied, and we can do that either the second meeting in February or the first meeting in March.
Okay. So that I'm looking forward to
Any
that.
other agency members?
I just had one thing, and I was trying to signal Ignacio to stay, and I apologize, this goes back to the bridge and something that I just want to remind staff, 2 concerns. I know we're very much at the beginning processes, but I want to remind staff that I raised this, Hank, before, because when we talked about the material for this, we talked about Cortan steel, and again, I got input back from Berkeley that becomes brittle in this salt air after a while and is not a long-term use. So I'd like to get, if that's going to be a suggested material again down the road, we need some input back on whether that's so. And second of all, within the scope of what you do, I would like to see some language, I don't want to micromanage here, but some language that addresses the issue of trying to make this overcrossing, whomever is selected to do it and whatever the design is, as pigeon-proof as possible, so that we don't create a place that people are running across the bridge instead of walking when they'd rather not be. So.
Mayor Davis,
Yes.
Dick reminded me, I had a question on the bridge, and I noticed, Joseph Mudd, you're here, and I'm going to have to put you on the spot. So one of the exhibits, and I vaguely recall that I mentioned this before, so remind me if I did. One of the exhibits shows the Horton Street landing, and there's a line that's pretty close to parallel with the tracks, and it marks the eastern boundary of the park. And if you follow that line, there's a point at which the Novartis property bumps out. There's kind of a bulb out, and as far as I can tell, there's no building there now. And so my question was, and it doesn't have to be answered now, but my question was, why doesn't that line just continue straight? Why does it have to come out? And the reason I'm concerned with it is that at the point that it comes out, it narrows the park. It narrows the width of the park. And is it just a historical accident? Is that where a property line was, or is Novartis intending to build a building that juts out like that into the park? So if you could get back to us, that would be helpful.
I would say this
You have to get up to
the mic.
This is Joseph Mudd, Novartis. This is not a technical response. In general, the commitment is to build a park on certain parcels of land, and so what you see there is parcel boundaries. But I think the thing to do is to look at it on a piece of paper and get the question really clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
Happy
you,
to do that
Joseph.
anytime.
Okay.
I just want to make one mention that with respect to the Corten steel, I did check with Professor Starning, and he did say that was satisfactory.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, the agency meeting is adjourned, and I would like to adjourn this meeting in memory of retired Fire Captain John Brewer, who served the city of Emeryville for 17 years and recently died. Continuing on with the Emeryville City Council meeting, are there any citizens to be heard on the council agenda? All right. City managers report.
I do have
Oh.
a
Is this the appropriate time? Measure C is on the agenda.
Measure C is on the agenda.
It's for items not on the agenda. We're to the right agenda now for this topic. So
Okay.
you've talked before at the beginning because it was just general stuff under citizens to be heard, not an item that was agendized, so you're kind of having to
Citizens to
wait
be
your
heard,
turn tonight.
Andre. John.
I just want to finish what I did start and had to stop for the 5 minutes. What my point in my conclusion is on Mayor Cassis' allegation is that when a citizen criticize, then he get upset, and getting upset is not really a way to behave in a city council. And now, from what I understand, city councilmen are not supposed to engage into argument with people who criticize them. And so I side with Brian. Brian is, to me, is a gentleman, although we don't talk much together. But he made an observation that is worthwhile. And to me, this is the second time that it happened. The first time is when Councilman Cassis made his chosen partner to run for city council in the name of a cafe. And I did get upset about that, and I made a flyer, and everybody got the message that by doing so, Mr. Kass is basically pulled the carpet over every other candidate that wanted to run. And of course, Cafe got elected. So it's it's more than ethic here. It's just unfair. And I really would like that, because this is the second time it happened. It's not an accident. And this is not also, excuse my French, you know, it's more than that. I think that Councilman Cassis should resign his position of councilman, and that we get someone who has not prejudice set in his mind about who is going to be appointed and who is going to be his partner in voting for issue on the city council. And I'm serious. I think you should resign. You have had your long time here on the city council, and you have always voted against me being raided on my property. I don't make any grievance against that, because you have your beef. But again, you just don't do that, and not in front of me, because I want to remind you something. There is a French camp by Stockton there. All the people, the French people, were murdered there. And from what I understand, it was also, excuse my French, because they didn't understand. Thank you.
I thank you for your invitation to resign, and I respectfully decline.
Patrick, interim city manager's report.
I just passed out to the City Council a set of bullet points that I wanted to also put up on the overhead here, so that residents could follow this, and let me zoom in on it for a minute. This concerns a proposed closure of the San Francisco-bound on-ramp to Interstate 80 at Powell Street. And there was information that came out recently in a committee meeting, and there were some emails that went back and forth. And I wanted to make sure that the council and the citizens had the full information here about what's being proposed. And there's also a potential some guidance that you could provide to staff and to Caltrans tonight as a result of this. So I'll just quickly walk you through what this project is about. This concerns a mitigation project for the Bay Bridge reconstruction. And what it will do is gather all of the water that currently flows, rainwater that flows off of the freeway that goes directly into the bay. It'll gather it up in a pipe through a pump station that goes to a settlement and filtering pond next to EB Mud treatment plant. It will filter the rainwater and then allow it to go to the bay. So it's an environmental enhancement that was a condition of the environmental impact report for the Bay Bridge freeway. How it affects the ramp is that there are inlets on the ramp that need to be reconstructed. There's a new pipe that needs to be constructed next to the ramp. There's the pump station, and then there's the staging involved in that. So you need to have equipment, trucks, and so forth actually on the ramp while that work is going on. So Caltrans is proposing to work during the night on one of its shifts. And they also have the ability under the contract that they've already executed with the contractor to have them stop in the morning during the AM commute and then restart during the non-commute hours in the morning and then stop in the afternoon. And what they're asking for and what we're recommending is that they have the ability to continue working a second shift through that morning commute period. They would still then stop around 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning, and the afternoon commute would not be affected, nor would the weekend use of the ramp. So what that would do, if we were to agree to that, is that it would decrease the duration of the ramp closure time in approximately half. So from 40 days down to about 20 days. And what it would do is inconvenience morning commuters, particularly from Watergate, trying to get on to the freeway to go to San Francisco. They would have to use the hook ramp instead and make a left turn. But the amount of time involved in that would be less. And as you can see on here, there's been some traffic counts that have been done on that ramp usage, I think by Caltrans. And you'll see that the AM commute period of time is the lightest at 600 vehicles per hour, and the heaviest time of the ramp usage is in the afternoons and on the weekends, which you'll see in that next bullet point here is 850 to 1,500 vehicles per hour. And during that heavier period of time, the ramp would remain open even if we encourage them to close it in the morning. So if you were to agree to that, then you would decrease the duration of time. And then also there's been some discussion at the Transportation Committee about closing the ramp, and so it would provide an opportunity to see what that means and for us to do some traffic counts. So that's our recommendation. Since this is this is not an action item, it's a city manager's report. If you don't agree with that approach and you want to have it as an action item, then I would suggest you give direction to staff to put it on the next agenda for February 6th, and we can actually have a full discussion about it and a decision by the council. But if you're comfortable with going forward tonight with AM
Patrick,
closure, then we could do that.
Consistent with the capital improvement approvals, we were looking at the possibility of a bridge across I-80 at Temescal Creek there, and would any of the work that they're doing there preclude that possibility, or can that be examined while they're doing this work to see if it could be compatible?
Well, that proposed bridge, I think you authorized a study to be done for that, and we haven't started that yet, and this work will be done before that study starts.
Okay, but I'd hate to see them put in improvements that would impair the ability to build a bridge there, so...
No, it wouldn't. It would not. You're
Could
just
they-
changing the drainage of the existing ramp, that's all.
Is there any way that we could make them aware that we're considering such a project over there? Just
I sent Bijan an email back in September or August, so
okay.
there. Mayor Davis, I had a comment about the traffic counts. It's my understanding that this ramp, I mean, you'll notice that the high-end calculation is 1,500 vehicles per hour. I think it's fair to assume that those 1,500 vehicles are not coming from Watergate every hour. And I've learned that vehicles come to that ramp from all different parts of the Bay Area because of the perceived or the actual advantage of getting on and getting to San Francisco from that ramp. People are coming from 580, and instead of going straight to the bridge, they'll actually go towards Berkeley and get off at Powell and then drive out to the marina and make the U-turn. People are coming from, let's say, El Cerrito, and they get off to use the frontage road instead of staying on the freeway because they gain a few minutes. And also, of course, from east of Emeryville, people come down Powell, and instead of using the hairpin on-ramp, they'll drive out and make a U-turn and come back. And so I think it would be so incredibly valuable to do very precise traffic counts so that, because the survey that is going on my website, a lot of people in the comments section are anticipating a huge traffic nightmare if the ramp is closed. And so this is an incredible opportunity to test what will happen. And my guess is that not only will it not be a huge nightmare, but it could even be better, because all of these cars that are coming in the morning commute, and my guess is that the afternoon commute, which is actually heavier, again, they're coming from somewhere else. And so it would be great to be able to prove that with traffic counts. And it's not simply traffic counts on this particular ramp. It's for all of the sources around the Powell interchange. So I identified in an email message to staff, I identified about a half a dozen very precise places that need to be counted, because if the ramp is closed, all of those will go down. All the counts, for example, it would be very valuable to have a count on the exit ramp, the eastbound exit ramp, because if there's a reduction there, that indicates that those people that are coming in the opposite direction are no longer doing so to take advantage of that ramp, because they know they can no longer do that. So I would love to get my colleagues' approval for these half dozen precise traffic count locations.
I would support that. You know, 90% of the people that use that ramp are coming from out of town. I mean, because the places in town just don't do that much business.
I think what Mr. O'Keefe is asking us now is whether we want to schedule this as an agenda item in the next meeting, or whether he would have the ability to move forward with Caltrans on the Caltrans proposal. What is the pleasure of the council? How are you responding to Mr. O'Keefe?
I think that it makes sense to go with what the staff recommendation is.
Okay.
But if this closure is coming imminently, then it's vital that we get a baseline count at all these places. And so,
Well, I think it's important that all the information that Caltrans has, Patrick, if we could ask Bijan that we get all those traffic counts that they've made.
but they're not going to.
They're baseline counts.
Right, but they're counting only on that one on-ramp. And I would like to get baseline counts from all of the 6 points that I think are important.
Why don't we just do that at the Transportation Committee and then forward it to the council?
Yeah, why don't, that's good, okay.
That's good if this closure is not imminent. Do we have any idea of when?
February.
February when? Early February?
We don't have an exact date, but I think we have enough time to get the counts that you're looking for if the council's interested in doing that.
Okay, that's why I'm pushing this now, because I'm worried about the timing. We need to get a baseline for 2 weeks before.
Okay, I'm interested in those
Okay.
counts.
So I would make a motion for that.
Well,
is that appropriate?
It's not on the
it's not on the agenda,
Okay.
but
We will
certainly
proceed, definitely. We understand where you're all
get
coming
the
from. We'll
direction.
proceed.
The more information, discrete information we get about that intersection, the better decisions we can make. Patrick, do you have anything else in your manager's report?
No, thank you.
Mayor,
Right.
I'm just sorry, but if we're going to make this a valid traffic count, we need to do it during the
Before.
closure and either before or after
No,
the
you do a
closure.
baseline
We've gotta
first,
do
and then you
both-
do it
both
during the
times.
closure.
2 weeks before, through the whole thing, and 2 weeks
Yeah,
after.
there may not be
All right.
time to get it done before, but it may have to be after.
I have a request for the council. We have several people here from, on the Measure C issue, and I would like to move it up on the
Yes, go right
agenda.
ahead.
Is that all right with everybody on the
Go right ahead.
council?
Yes.
All right, that is, which item is
7A.
that?
7A.
7A. It's a resolution of the City Council adopting regulations and procedures implementing Measure C. Mr. Biddle.
Thank you, Mayor Davis. Before you, and I've provided on your dais a revised version, which I did make copies of earlier, and I also did email the revised version to some of the hotels and other interested parties. What I would then propose to do is to walk through these revised regulations, unless you want to, and I was going to do it in some detail, unless you would rather have me approach it otherwise and open it up and hear if there's any comments and ask questions.
Yeah, why don't you do that?
Well,
Okay.
why don't we open it up to any comments from the audience, and then if there are any specific areas of interest, the council can zero in on them. Was that acceptable to the members?
Yeah.
All right. Any members of the audience wishing to speak on Measure C, these rules and regulations?
Just before we start, I will just indicate that I did provide you a copy of a letter that was provided by eBase, and they had some issues that I imagine they're going to speak to as well later. Excuse me.
There's also a letter from Woodfin Suites here.
Okay, I haven't.
If I may, I would like to read that letter.
All right.
Thank you. This is a letter that I delivered to Mayor Nora Davis and copied all of the honorable council members. On behalf of Woodfin Suites Hotels, I would like to register and enter into the public record my strenuous objection to the hurried manner in which the regulations and procedures in pending Measure C were published and distributed prior to this evening's council vote. The current draft, the first our company has had the opportunity to review, was transmitted via email and received at our offices at 5:59 p.m. on the afternoon of Friday, January 12th. A circumstance that, in light of Monday's holiday, allowed us just one business day to review a document of considerable length and technical complexity. I find it frankly unconscionable that Council would fail to provide organizations directly impacted by Measure C with a reasonable period of time to review, consider, and comment on these regulations prior to their being put to the Council vote. I'm confident that Council members share our company's desire to see that any regulations governing local business are carefully crafted, meticulously reviewed, and effectively implemented. As such, I would respectfully request that the Council delay action on the governing regulations and procedures until a working session between members and local representatives can be convened to review specific elements of the proposal and their attendant repercussions. For the record, we at Woodfin continue to assert that Measure C is, in its current form, is a flawed piece of legislation that unfairly burdens suite-type hotels, which remain highly popular with business and leisure travelers alike, and as such constitute a vital component of the Alameda County business community's lodging base.
Any questions?
I
Thank
don't know,
you.
I guess the question would be, is there any harm in letting them go over the regulations with the staff before we, I mean, I'm not trying to delay implementation, but I think he raises a point, so.
Well,
It will delay it. That's the whole issue. I mean,
Well-
I mean, I don't know if they can go off into a room and do that right now, but I mean, the longer
not
these
gonna
things
do-
aren't put in place.
Well, I mean, to the extent that the Woodfin Hotel honors the provisions that the council adopted in its urgency ordinance to provide protections to some of the workers who have filed complaints relative to noncompliance with Measure C, then I don't perceive that a delay is going to be a harm to them because of the timeline in terms of the city having to then commence the investigation is sort of stayed, and they likewise are continued to be obligated to keep them on the payroll during that period of time that we're undertaking our investigation. So, because the triggering point in that urgency ordinance was the adoption of these regulations. So if we put it off another 2 weeks, then there's no harm to the employees from my perspective.
My problem with the delay is that one of the things that we're asking a judge is to grant a motion for preliminary injunction. Why? Because from the city's perspective, it's to put things on hold, maintain the status quo until the city decides if there's basis for the allegations. We are not putting this, we're not punting the substance of these complaints to the Superior Court. And for us to delay the implementation of these regulations means that at the January 23rd hearing, our counsel has to tell the judge that the city doesn't even have its regulations in place, which I think looks bad. I think that we should be able to tell the judge, look, we at the last city council meeting, the city council adopted these regulations, and now the city staff is in the process of investigating them, and Judge, we're asking you to order that the status quo be maintained so that the city can determine the validity.
Well, certainly we would go before, just to respond to that, to the extent that became an issue of the court, we would certainly make it clear to the court that the reason that we decided, that the council decided to continue the consideration of it was at the request of the representative of the Woodfin Hotel. So I think they would be hard pressed to, on one hand, argue that we're not proceeding, and then because we've delayed it at their request.
I guess I think we have a better leg to stand on if we at least gave them the opportunity to review the regulations before the implementation, that the court might see it to our advantage. that way.
Let's see if there are any other people who would like to speak to this. Thank you, Mr. McIntosh.
Yeah, if I may, Mayor, just before, Hugh, I said last time, you're here doing a job, and I appreciate that. And we've always had a great relationship with businesses in this town, and I've been a very pro-business person, and I campaigned against Measure C. That was before you were here, because I still believe it's not the proper thing that cities ought to be doing, but it was passed by the voters, and so our job is to enforce it. And I just want to say, I understand the company's concern about the time to review these regulations, but if we're going to start throwing around words like unconscionable, I just want to say that the fact that the hotel's actions put this city in a place where we had to run off and try to get a restraining order to stop what I believe were unconscionable actions is really a breach of the relationship that this city has had with the Woodfin Hotel in the past. So if that term applies here, and I understand the frustration with the short timing on these regs, but I hope you also understand the frustration we have and the very tough position that Woodfin has placed this city council in relative to the workers. And I want to make that real clear, that I think that we have been backed into a corner that I'm not comfortable being in, and I don't think, frankly, any of that was necessary.
Good evening. Pardon our earlier confusion about when the appropriate time to speak is. Brooke Anderson. I'm from the East Bay Alliance for a Sustainable Economy. I'm here tonight to address the proposed regulations and procedures to enforce Measure C. We believe, and we've also, I believe you have a copy of a memo that we've written on the subject. We believe overall that the regulations contain a fair and reasonable process to go about the enforcement of Measure C, with two exceptions. The first is the August 2006 start date, and the second, a lack of a worker appeal process. I'd like to address the first of these, that the city will not consider violations of Measure C that happened before August 11th, 2006, in either the permitting or the investigation of worker complaints. So first, this seems to undermine the city's successful effort to defend Measure C against court challenges. Two hotels challenged Measure C in court and then requested a preliminary injunction against the law. The judge ruled against the injunction, which means that the hotels are required by law to comply with the ordinance back to the start date of December 2005. The city spent taxpayer money to defend the ordinance, and we're glad that you defended it. But if the city ignores non-compliance of the law for the first 8 months after the effective date, then taxpayer money spent to defend the ordinance has been wasted. Further, we're concerned that this sends the wrong message to other Emeryville businesses that if they can forego compliance with city law by initiating litigation against the city and requesting a temporary restraining order, even if they have little chance of being granted that kind of a restraining order. Second, by settling on an August 2006 start date, you're giving the hotels what we believe is a special reprieve. And the hotels knew that their legal challenge could fail and that they would be mandated to comply all the way back to December 2005. And the industry standard for businesses is to make plans to comply in the event that they're not granted an injunction. For instance, with a local example, Skates Restaurant, it challenged the Berkeley Living Wage Ordinance many years ago in federal court, and they paid the difference between their existing wages and what the wages they would be required to pay under the Living Wage Ordinance into an escrow account for 2 years during which the trial proceeded. This money was then ultimately paid back to employees when the restaurant's lawsuit failed. Emeryville hotels could and should have done likewise in preparation for a failed legal challenge, and so there's no reason to let them off the hook by changing the start date to August 11th. Lastly, Measure C afforded Emeryville hotel workers certain rights dating back to December 2005. And while many of these workers are owed thousands and thousands of dollars in back pay in between those two dates, and they deserve to have this considered in deliberations about the regulations. And for the sake of the city who defended the law, the residents' taxpayer monies that went into that defense, and then workers whose rights are at stake, we'd urge you to strike from the regulations the clause establishing August 11, 2006 as a compliance start date. And regarding possible delay of discussion around these regulations, I would encourage the council to ask the Woodfin whether or not they intend to abide by the 90 days ordinance that was passed several weeks ago that would provide protection to workers who filed complaints and give time for the city to investigate those complaints. And if the Woodfin intends to abide by that, we would consider being okay with a possible delay. Thanks.
Is this on?
Buenas noches.
Good evening. Can you hear this?
It sounds like it's like, maybe we can ask the recording person, is it coming across?
It's on,
Yeah,
yes.
okay, thank you.
It's on.
Buenas noches, señoras y señores. Como ustedes saben, somos un grupo de trabajadores del Woodfin Suite Hotel.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As you know, we're a group of workers from the Woodfin Suites Hotel.
Hemos estado viniendo para ser escuchados, como ustedes ya están enterados,
We've been coming to be heard before you, as you know,
de nuestros problemas y sabemos del apoyo tan grande que nos han brindado todos ustedes.
and we know of the great support that you've provided for us.
Venimos una vez más a pedirles, por favor, más de su ayuda.
And we've come once again to ask you for help.
Para que se haga justicia y se pague lo correspondiente, para que se pague lo correspondiente desde que entró en efectivo la medida C.
And we're asking you to help us arrive at a just solution where the money is paid that is owed going back to the beginning of Measure C.
Que como ustedes saben, esta medida fue aprobada en diciembre del 2005.
As you know, this measure was approved in December of 2005.
Y no como se quiere hacer de solamente contarlo desde agosto del 2006.
And not this past August, as the proposal suggests the enforcement should begin.
Esto para nosotros es algo muy serio.
This is something very serious for us.
Porque está en juego nuestro duro y difícil trabajo que desarrollamos en este lugar.
Because what's at play for us here is a year of long, hard work.
En este año que elaboramos, hemos sacado adelante la empresa del hotel.
In this year, we've been moving the business forward with our work.
Y nos gusta el trabajo y lo hemos sacado al 100%.
We like our work and we've been putting 100% into it.
Y si es algo que por ley nos corresponde, queremos que así sea.
And if there's something that is our right under the law, we want it to be that way.
No venimos a pedir algo que no exista o que nosotros lo hayamos inventado.
We're not asking for anything that doesn't already exist or anything that we've invented ourselves.
Y si es por ley que nos corresponde, de favor les pedimos que se haga efectivo.
If there's something that's our legal right, we want it to be effective.
Que se cuente el tiempo desde que correspondió a ejercerse la medida C en el año 2005.
So we're asking that you consider violations of the law going back to when Measure C was first went into effect in 2005.
Y no como se quiere hacer ahora, solo de agosto para hasta el momento.
And not only since last August.
Siendo que el 2005 fue un año difícil para nosotros,
Since 2005 was a difficult year for us.
porque limpiábamos 16 suites, que como ustedes saben, no son cuartos sencillos.
Because at that time during that year we were cleaning 16 suites a day, which as you know are not just rooms.
Y aún así, con orgullo y con mucho esfuerzo, sacamos el trabajo.
And you know, with great effort and with pride, we got that work done.
Sin en cambio, aquí seguimos y seguiremos trabajando hasta que se nos permita y seguiremos cumpliendo.
So we're and we got that work done, and we're continuing to work, and we will continue to work as long as they let us, and we keep on doing what they ask of us.
Pero por favor, queremos que también se nos cumpla a nosotros.
But please, we're asking that they also give us what's our due.
Esto es una prueba más de que nosotros somos gente de trabajo y con responsabilidades.
This is one more proof that we're hardworking people with responsibilities.
Y solo les rogamos atiendan nuestras necesidades y nuestras opiniones.
And we're just asking you to pay attention to our needs and our opinions.
Esperamos que sean justos e investiguen a fondo esta situación.
We hope that you will be just and investigate the situation.
Porque de esto esperamos ser recompensados a lo que nos corresponde por el trabajo que realizamos los housekeeping.
Because we want to be compensated for the work that we from housekeeping have done.
Gracias.
Thank you very much.
Can I ask a question? Mike, does the city have the legal ability to delay implementation of a voter-adopted law?
Well, to the extent there were, I don't want to get too far into discussions that are probably more appropriate in closed session. But to the extent, there was a challenge filed and there was a motion for an injunction pending for some period of time, that was sort of the basis upon which the suggested further resolve, the last resolve on the last page was presented. Was that there was sort of a holding period or holding pattern as related to the city's implementation of it. And while I appreciate the comments of some of the workers, there's also trying to be somewhat fair to the hotels based on what they observed to be, the city's position as to its implementation.
Okay. Ruth?
Could the staff explain why the August date was picked?
Well, as I said, I don't really want to get into disclosure of closed session discussions, but it reflects back on sort of the direction of the council as it related to that federal lawsuit litigation.
I also had some comments to make on a different subject related to this. Should I go ahead with that?
Go
now,
ahead.
or- Okay. So good evening. My name is Sarah Knorr. I'm from eBase. So we want to thank Mr. Biddle for developing these proposals. I think they look great overall. But I just wanted to point out one other change that's very important to the workers. So as written, this proposal puts city staff in charge of decisions about permitting, about whether to grant or deny or attach conditions to a hotel operating permit. So that means the staff's also going to be responsible for investigating worker complaints. And if they find that a worker complaint does have merit, they can use the permitting process to correct that, for example, by attaching a condition to the hotel's permit sufficient to correct the problem. And the proposal also allows hotels to appeal the decisions of the city staff in this area. So, if the city staff determines that a condition should be added to the permit, they can appeal that. And when that happens, they're given a hearing before the full council. They're given the opportunity to bring in witnesses, bring in legal counsel, and to tell their story both to the council and to the general public, which I think is fair enough. It's a serious issue, and they should have the chance to express their views. The issue I have is that if the workers disagree with the staff decision in regard to these complaints and to the permitting, they have no recourse at all under the proposal. They have no possibility to appeal. So they have no ability to bring their concerns either directly to the council or to the public at large. So just to consider how this would play out in the scenario that we have now. So some of the Woodfin workers, as you know, have filed complaints alleging that they were cleaning more floor space than they were supposed to and they weren't paid appropriately, and that the hotel suspended and sought to fire them for their support of Measure C. So if the staff investigates and finds that these allegations are true, they could attach a condition to the Woodfin's operating permit that would be sufficient to remedy that. And if they do that, the hotel is going to be able to appeal that decision, bring their case to you, bring in their witnesses and their lawyers, and get a fair hearing. But on the other hand, if the staff decides, no, these complaints don't have merit, so we're going to go ahead and grant a permit to the hotel unconditionally, the workers would have no chance to appeal. You guys would never have the chance to hear their side of the story. So this, to me, seems unfair on the face of it. There should be one standard of justice that applies to everyone. And I don't want to suggest that the city staff would ever make a mistake in their permitting decisions, but if we're going to give hotel managers the opportunity to disagree with staff and to bring their concerns directly to the council, I think a housekeeper is entitled to the same level of respect. It's the same principle where a zoning decision could be appealed by a business or it could be appealed by a neighbor that's affected by that decision. In the case of these workers, their jobs are on the line, so they certainly have as great a stake in the situation as anyone. So I just suggest changing the procedure to allow workers the same appeal rights when their complaints are not acted on as a hotel has when the complaints are acted on, just as an issue of fairness. And in regards to the, once again, to the issue of whether to begin in August or in December 2005, I think it's clear that there was things were up in the air legally, but I think we should look at who initiated that uncertainty, right? It was the Woodfin and the Sheraton that filed that lawsuit that created that uncertainty. The workers never did anything to create that level of doubt. It was definitely the hotels that took the initiative to put that situation in play up in the air. So when we look at someone taking a loss here of over $100,000 by our calculations of which is the amount of money that should have been paid to the workers for cleaning over time between December and August, someone's got to take that loss, right? It's either going to be the hotels or the workers. And since the hotels were the ones that created this situation of uncertainty, and I think did so at their own risk, there's no reason why the workers should have to lose that money that they're legally entitled to. It's not their fault, and they really need the money. So thank you very much. As far as, whether these comments become relevant this session or next session, I think, again, as long as the Woodfin plans to abide by the emergency ordinance and not fire workers during that time, it's whatever you guys think is appropriate is fine with me. All right, thanks very much.
Members of the council?
I think that the two issues, the first thing before we get there is does the city council want to delay this? I'm prepared to not delay it, but I think that should be decided preliminarily before I get into the substance of my comments.
Well, is the hotel going to maintain the status quo if this is continued?
Well, the hotel does not have the greatest track record, so.
But I mean, if they represent here that they're going to do that, I would assume that would be what they're going to do. I mean,
Okay, well, they also represented at a prior meeting that they were forthwith going to produce the data that the city attorney's office requested, and they did not.
Well, we received that January 5th, I believe. Forget what the Monday was, but it was a
I'm
week
okay
ago.
with the delay. I mean,
I'm
given-
okay with the
given
delay too,
position-
because I think it is a rather complex document. There's some serious issues here, and if the city attorney assures us that no one is going to be harmed by a delay, I would entertain a motion to move this to the first February meeting. Do I have a motion like that?
Well, we haven't
No one will be
gotten,
harmed?
I'd like to hear from Mr. McIntosh.
I think that's more appropriate.
Thank you for the opportunity again. Yes, we did provide the documentation to the city, as Michael Biddle stated, and that was done on the 4th of January. I met with Margaret O'Brien in your boardroom here, went through any questions that she may have had, and I've spoken to her on a couple of occasions since to clarify a couple of matters, and I presume she's moving forward on that now. Certainly, we will comply with the ordinance, and the workers will be safe until this is resolved, and if you would grant a slight delay, we would certainly be very appreciative.
My understanding is that the workers were returned to work, but not at full time. Is that the case?
Well, the workers have come back to work in a period of low occupancy, and as we all know in the hotel business, housekeepers' hours are based on the level of occupancy in the property, and our occupancy is down right now due to the seasonality of the business.
So are you representing that a year ago the same thing happened, that the workers were not working full-time during a low occupancy period?
I wasn't there a year ago, but that is a trend in the hospitality industry, that the maids' hours are totally relevant with the occupancy level in the hotel. So if the occupancy level is down, the number of hours that are available to distribute to the workers is down as well.
Is it the case that you hired replacement workers?
We didn't hire replacement workers. We hired workers that we needed to complete our complement of staff.
Are any of those workers still employed at the Emeryville location?
7 of them are, and we have taken the largest pool of hours and distributed them amongst the 16 complainants, and the residue of hours, if any, are going to the other 7 associates.
I just think we come out of this better when we give them a fair opportunity to
Well,
review
is that
it.
a motion
Yeah,
to?
yeah.
All right, do I have a second on that?
Yeah, I'll second it, but then we can still get into the substance of these other.
All right.
other things.
Sure.
Let me ask my colleagues one thing.
Thank you.
I went through it pretty carefully, and I'm prepared to delay, but I wonder if it would be helpful to at least go through the substance, and maybe not implement now, but just to go through it as well, because it's fresh in my mind right now. So is that something that we can do tonight?
I'd be willing to do that. I did the same thing. I mean,
Now, this
staff-
is not to
staff's
say
gonna-
this is not to say we're prejudging, and
No.
I'm happy to hear from the hotels at the next meeting, and we can change things. It's not set in stone, but it would help to have a cleaner copy, because I have a lot of comments, a lot of minor things, some major. So
I just want to comment, I do think Sarah is right about the appeal process. If the hotel has the ability to appeal the staff decision, certainly the workers should. I mean, that's
Well, that gets into the very issue that John's talking
Yeah,
about,
right.
is do we want to dig into the substance of this tonight?
If we're delaying it, then I'd rather talk about it when it comes back.
But
I
you see,
would too.
but you see, here's my hesitation in doing that, is that means then that if staff has to go back and do some more work based upon the questions or comments that we all raise, then that's going to delay implementation yet again while those things get worked out. I think it'd be better for staff to know what our concerns are now, and either address those that are appropriate in open session. If there's some that border on closed session, we can deal with that. But they'll be in a much better position to bring something before us after talking with the hotels during this time that we can then be ready to vote on next time. So
Well-
that's my concern with waiting.
Councilmember Cassis, I think the union representatives have made their concerns very, very clear, and during the delay process, one would conjecture that the hotels would bring forward their problems. Then we have the whole package in front of us, and at that time could have a discussion. I don't quite know what, the staff isn't going to do anything until we have the final discussion
Yeah,
and
let
give
them work it out, and
direction.
then we won't have to go through as much, because I'm sure
That's
they're going
right.
to
Right.
decipher.
I agree with you, Ken.
Would you call the roll on that motion?
Councilmember Bukowski.
Okay, what is the motion? I'm sorry.
To delay until the first meeting in February.
Yeah, aye.
Councilmember Fricke.
aye.
Councilmember Cassis.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Atkin.
Aye.
Mayor Davis.
Aye. Moving back to the consent calendar, do I hear a motion on the consent calendar?
Yeah, I have to
I
pull-
move the consent
I have
calendar.
to pull,
Which did you want to pull?
just 1 second here. I wanted to pull H.
H. With the exception of H, with the exception of H and M. N, okay.
And I was already passed.
I beg your pardon?
Item I was previously passed.
That's right, okay. The remainder of the consent calendar, who was the second on that?
If I wasn't, I will.
Okay,
Yeah, I moved it, so.
okay. Would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Bukowski.
Aye.
Councilmember Fricke.
Aye.
Councilmember Cassis.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Atkin.
Aye.
Mayor Davis.
Aye. Councilmember Bukowski, item H.
Now, I don't know if it's appropriate to state my reservation about this issue publicly, so I don't know how to respond to it.
You want to
Mr.
just
Biddle?
vote against it?
Well, I think it's a serious mistake, and I
So you could just vote against it.
well, I think it's important that I express the reasons why, because it has impact on litigation, so, or maybe not, I don't know. It's up to you.
Well, I would prefer not to hear any comments publicly if it's related to the litigation.
I think it is.
Well, you can just vote against it.
I know, but I think my input might convince you not to support it.
How about if we pass it to the end of the meeting?
Okay, move it to the end of the meeting, that's fine.
Why?
Well, wait, why would we do that?
So I can give you my input.
Yeah, but it's still recorded and public and rebroadcast.
No, I
and-
think what Mr. Biddle is saying, that this is a closed, your comments are more appropriate in closed session.
Okay, so
Right,
then can we...
what I'm suggesting, I'm sorry, Mayor Davis, what I'm suggesting is that we pass this, and when we finish with everything else, we have a brief closed session period so that Ken can tell us what his thoughts are.
Well, why would you pass it first? You wouldn't pass it until after you hear what I had to say.
Right, right.
No, what I'm suggesting is we just delay this one item until the very end of the night,
Right.
and then we can have a short closed session.
Right, okay,
And-
right,
I believe we
And then
can,
maybe we'll come back and we'll approve it even after hearing you,
right,
so.
right.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah, okay.
Wait a minute, Mr. Biddle, can you give us some advice on this? We don't have a closed session.
we've already convened and closed our closed session, so I don't see a need for us to go in there. And so what I would suggest, that we could continue this item to the next meeting, and we can discuss your issues as
In a
they
closed
relate to the
session.
litigation in closed session.
Don't we always have the right to go into closed session, though, if something springs up during a meeting?
Well, there's nothing that is, there's
Only as an
no threat of
emergency.
litigation, there's no impetus here that is,
Well, I don't know, I did send you a memo about this.
well, we
briefly.
had a closed session earlier on this, and you did not raise it at that point.
I wasn't
so-
there, so I couldn't raise it.
Well,
Well, I would suggest we continue the item to our next meeting, and we can discuss it in
All right.
closed session at that time.
Okay,
So put it off till February.
okay. Great.
Is that going to be an operational
do I
problem?
hear Patrick, will that be an operational problem
No,
for you?
that's fine.
All right, do I hear a motion to continue this item to
Move to
February?
continue.
All right. You have a second?
Second.
Without exception.
No, I'm voting against that, continuing it.
All right, 4-1. Item N,
Yes, thank you.
Councilmember Cassis, police station parking lot fence.
Yeah, and Pat, is this yours, or is this the police department's, or who does this?
It's a little both, so go ahead with your questions and we'll figure out who should answer.
Okay, well, aesthetics are my first question. What color is this thing going to be?
I believe it's going to be black.
It's going to be wrought iron, I hope.
It is black, yes, okay.
black.
Yes.
It's black.
And my second question is, I'd like to just understand how the operating mechanism is going to work when the gate opens and closes. Does it swing? Does it slide? Where does it go?
Yeah, Rachel will answer some of the details you have.
Thanks, Hank.
We believe it's going to slide open towards the east.
Towards the
if you're-
building?
Well, towards the building, yes.
Right. So,
We're working on developing exactly the type of mechanism that the police department will use. We haven't worked that out yet, but it will be a sliding fence to the east.
Okay.
What's the difference how it slides? I mean,
Well, the part of the concern is if it was going to go west, it creates some problems with pedestrians and kids that I've seen over there on a fair number of occasions. I just didn't want to, I've seen these things end up hurting people if they're not carefully designed. So, we're using somebody to design this that does this professionally, I assume.
Exactly.
Okay, that's it. I'd move approval.
Jeannie, what is the
Second.
input of the police department? Are you completely happy with the design?
Yes, we are.
You just want the fence, don't you?
Yes, we do.
All right.
it's long overdue.
And just so I understand too, the emergency way out is just, there's this piece that's not anchored that they can just knock down if they have to drive out in emergency?
Correct. If you're looking at the fence as it is right now, there is a gap
Right.
with a driveway that is settled a bit, so it's not currently used. But there will be a lift-out piece there or removable piece right there. It'll look as though it's a solid fence, but that will be an emergency exit.
All right, now we'll move into public hearings. 6A, this is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Emeryville approving a demolition permit and use permit and design review at 6315 Vallejo Street. Maru?
Good evening, Mayor Davis and council members. This item was reviewed by the council on December 19th, and the council continued to allow time for the applicant to make certain modifications. Before I go into that, just a quick recap as to what the project is. The site is at Vallejo Street between 63rd and 64th. The project involves demolition of an existing single-family home and replacing that with constructing 3 new units. There are 2 buildings. The building facing Vallejo Street, the parking is accommodated for all the 3 units on the lower level, and the upper level is unit number 3, and it's about 900 square feet. There's a building in the rear, and that accommodates the other 2 units, which are about 1,100 and 1,200 square feet. At the December 19th meeting, the council had certain concerns and requested certain modifications to be made. One was introducing a pedestrian entry feature such as an arbor, a change to propose vertical siding to horizontal siding, inclusion of some kind of decorative doors, inclusion of glass on garage doors, and realignment of the driveway in order to reduce the width of the curb cut. The applicant has submitted revised plans, and all but one concerns have been addressed. Applicant has introduced an arbor, which is right here, and I'll show you the elevation in just a second. And this, you can see this in the elevation right here. The second one was changing the vertical siding to horizontal siding, and this has been done. You can see this in the elevations. Making the garage doors more decorative. These are the little glass panes on top of the garage doors. And as far as the realignment of the driveway is concerned, the applicant did provide a proposed plan to reduce the curb cut. However, when staff reviewed the project, reviewed the driveway, we felt that the cars would not be able to maneuver back, and it would not work. We did suggest that a possibility would be moving the entire building back so that there is more ample space for the cars to move out. But this would mean moving both the buildings back, and that would involve rear yard variance. Also, it would reduce the amount of open space for the residents of both the buildings. Staff believes that the applicant has made a good faith effort to realign the driveway, albeit not very successfully. However, staff does believe that applicant's proposal, as in the past, of providing wheel strips for the driveway lengths may not look as bad as one may think, and I've got some pictures.
Providing what? Say that again?
I'm sorry. So that the applicant is now proposing, regarding the driveway width, they want to, basically, it's going to stay the same as it was before.
Okay, yeah.
And what is also going to stay the same as before are the wheel strips. And to give the council an idea of how these wheel strips might look like, there's a project on West Oakland, on Magnolia and 32nd, and which has successfully used wheel strips.
Oh, I see.
And I'm going to show you some more. I can sort of zoom in on any picture if the camera
Yeah,
desires.
could you, maybe the lower right-hand corner, could you kind of, just for me for a second? So this is, in these, oh, I see. So the tall stuff hits the divider beam, and the grass is what would be straddled by the tires.
That's right.
All right.
Have we required these on any other projects?
Yes, we have required that on a couple of projects where there were a couple of condo conversions, and one of the conditions of the condo conversion was to remove the paving, which was completely paved driveway, and remove that with wheel strips.
Okay.
I believe that the stormwater-related amendments to the zoning ordinance that were passed by the council last year sometime also now requires wheel strips instead of solid driveways in residential developments.
Okay.
So with this, I would like to end my presentation, and my staff recommendation is that the council approve the demolition permit and the use permit and design review for the 3 proposed units. If there are any questions, I would be happy to answer.
It's a public hearing, Ken.
Okay.
The public hearing is open. Any comments? Public hearing is closed. What is the pleasure of the council?
I move staff recommendation.
Second?
I'm going to vote no on this for the reasons that I stated at the last meeting.
All right. Call the roll, please, Karen.
I'm sorry. I've still got a concern here. I'm ready to support the staff recommendation, but I have 2 concerns. First of all, with regard to the landscape wheel strips, I would like to see that added to page 16. That requires, which would require, put that in the language of the approval, that the wheel strips be maintained permanently, so that we don't just get them in and then drive over them and say, well, the tires wrecked them and you know, we don't have to do this anymore. That it would be a condition that has to be maintained indefinitely, not just when they finish building it. Because it's page 16, paragraph C1, that talks about the landscaping improvements.
Right.
And it seems like the most logical place to go, and I would just like some language that makes sure that the wheel strips be added to that section as part of the landscaping that has to be maintained.
I don't object, but is anybody really going to enforce that?
Well, you know, if they let them go and it just becomes another, you know, source of hardscape instead of what we're requiring here, then yeah, we've got.
Yeah, do you
well-
accept the amendment?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Anything else, Dick?
Yeah, one other, Maru, where in the diagram, because that's part of the public record, where in the diagram of the design are the wheel strips actually labeled? It's just the writing gets so small, I can't find it. If it's there on some of these diagrams, I'm missing it.
It's in the landscape plan, page 7. I'll put it up in just a minute. It shows the wheel strip detail.
Right.
So, and the wheel strips, I mean, maybe, this is the wheel strip, and from the plans on the site plan.
Yeah, I want to look at the site plan and see where,
On the site plan, it does not call out for the wheel strips.
Okay, is there any reason that those couldn't be labeled on this diagram that's the overhead that shows everything? So it's clear where the wheel strips are?
Where else could they be but in the driveway?
Well,
To whose benefit?
you know, it's gonna matter what we ask people to maintain. If you don't make it clear, and it's not clear to me from looking at the diagram, frankly. So I don't see what's wrong with labeling. If
But
it's
you just
something,
put them in the conditions of approval.
yes, but what I'm trying to do is eliminate a vagueness about
Councilmember-
what are the wheel strips.
Vice
That's what
Mayor
I'm trying to do.
Cassis?
Yes.
If you, on the plans that were provided, page 2, which is sort of a, you might call it a site plan, I guess.
Talking about it's got a 2 in the lower right-hand corner?
Correct.
Okay.
On the bottom area, you'll see it says, see diagram 1 for wheel strip detail.
Okay.
You follow that?
And that goes to one of those darkened areas?
Correct. And that
Okay.
goes, and then if you go to the very last page, page 7, and it says adjacency map, and it has a wheel strip detail.
Okay, I've got page 7. It says what? Oh, and that's what Maru was pointing out a moment
Yeah.
ago. Okay, as far as you're concerned, is that
That's fine. I think the more
definite enough
important
for us
one
to
was
enforce?
was the language that you added as well. I
Okay,
think
all right, thank you.
Are we ready to
I-
call the
I'm-
roll?
I'm ready
Call
to
the
go.
roll, please.
Councilmember Bukowski?
Aye.
Councilmember Fricke?
No, and I'd like the reasons why I'm voting no to be in the record. The following reasons, I think, make this project worse than what's there now. The frontage has 3 garage doors facing the sidewalk. There's no front door. The existing building is human scale. It has 1 driveway. It has a front door. This is 3 garage doors, no front door. It will require a curb cut for the entire width of the parcel. This exists on my street currently, and it's a very ugly treatment. I also want to reiterate my objection to the so-called one-bedroom units. It violates the zoning ordinance. The definition that I found in the zoning ordinance is a bedroom means number of rooms available predominantly as sleeping quarters. And these one-bedroom units are larger in square footage than most two-bedroom houses. It certainly is larger than our house before we renovated. So what these units really are two-bedroom units. And I think that they're being called one-bedroom simply to get around the parking requirement of the zoning ordinance. I don't necessarily agree with the parking requirement in the zoning ordinance, but this, I think, is a violation of the zoning ordinance, and I think that this body should respect the law of the zoning ordinance. Lastly, I think it's a bad design because there's a unit right above these 3 garages. There's a bedroom right above a garage, and I think that that's another terrible design. Lastly, the photos that were shown to us, I agree, look great, but you'll notice in those photos that those are units that have a front door. Those are units that have only 1 driveway. That is a human scale. If this project was truly like the photos that were shown to us, which it is not, then I would be more inclined to support it. But it is a fraud to show us those photos as an indication that this project will be like those. That is not the case. So for those reasons, I'm voting no, and I would like it in the record.
Continue the roll call, please.
Councilmember Cassis?
Give me just a moment, please. I want to finish looking at the photographs. It looks like the widest curb cuts in these photographs are for 2 garages, not 3 like we
Yeah,
have
that's
here.
because there are units lined up. There are a number of properties that are lined up, so they put the garages next to each other. But this
Right.
is not, so that each unit has 1 width one car width curb cut. It is not a curb cut the length of the entire street, which is what this would be if you had multiple properties.
Yeah, I understand. Okay, I understand your concern, John. I'm okay with this. I'll vote aye.
Vice Mayor Atkins.
Was that an aye?
That was an aye.
It was.
Aye. I'm an aye.
Mayor Davis.
Aye. Okay, moving on to the second public hearing. This is a
Mayor
resolution.
Davis, can I just make a quick comment? It's a point of order. When you called the consent calendar, I did not mark on my calendar the two items I would like to discuss, and I'm wondering if I could have a motion to reconsider so I can raise the two items that I'd like
I
to
actually wanted to
discuss.
discuss item E too, and I didn't get to raise that either.
Well, how about if we continue the public hearings and then we come back to the consent
I
calendar?
appreciate that. Thank you.
Resolution of the City Council of the City of Emeryville confirming the abatement cost in the amount of $8,568.95 for the property located at 1264 Ocean Avenue and authorizing recording of a lien and placement of a special assessment against the property. Michael Guina.
Good evening, Mayor Davis and members of the City Council. I'm Michael Guina, Deputy City Attorney. For your consideration is a resolution which would confirm the amount of $8,568.95 as costs incurred by the city to abate the property at 1264 Ocean Avenue, owned by Andre Carpio. The resolution would also authorize staff to record those costs as a lien against the property. As the council is aware, there's a long-standing history of ongoing code violations regarding the maintenance of the property. The City Council had previously authorized commencement of litigation against Mr. Carpio to address these code violations. One of the violations included scaffolding, which Mr. Carpio had erected around the exterior of the property without the benefit of required permits. The scaffolding was used by Mr. Carpio to access the roof, and he also used it as a storage facility for lumber, metal, construction materials, which he stored within the scaffolding itself. The scaffolding was not only unsightly, but represented a dangerous, unsanitary condition and also represented an attractive and dangerous public nuisance. Accordingly, a judge of the Superior Court issued an order which authorized city staff to abate the property by removing the scaffolding if Mr. Carpio failed to do so within a reasonable period of time. The order also required the city to store the scaffolding and the materials therein for 60 days, and thereafter the city could dispose of the items. In addition, the order authorized the city to recover the costs of the abatement and storage and to lien the property in the case of non-payment. Pursuant to the order, city staff conducted the abatement of the property on June 1st and 2nd, 2006, after proper notice had been afforded to Mr. Carpio. Given the size of the scaffolding and the amount of materials to be removed, staff retained the services of a debris removal construction company to dismantle the structure. The removal of the scaffolding took 2 days, and thereafter staff spent additional time cataloging the stored materials. The cost of the abatement chargeable to Mr. Carpio is $8,568.95. This amount includes the cost of the debris removal company, staff time in overseeing the abatement and later cataloging the materials stored, and storage fees for the 2-month period specified in the order. And a complete detail of the cost breakdown is included in your staff report. Staff had sent Mr. Carpio multiple letters seeking reimbursement of the abatement costs, but no response from him had been forthcoming on this issue. Staff had also advised Mr. Carpio of tonight's meeting and provided him with a copy of the staff report and resolution in advance and invited him to come and comment on the item as he saw necessary. The staff recommendation is that the City Council adopt the resolution which would confirm the costs of $8,568.95 incurred by the city in execution of the order, and which would authorize staff to record a lien and place a special assessment against the property to recover the city's costs. That's the conclusion of my report, unless you have any questions for me.
Any questions on the part of the council members? None. Public hearing is opening. Would anyone like to speak? Mr. Carpio.
There has been a long history of persecution of my work and my trade. I have made successfully outside the jurisdiction of the city of Emeryville several things, among them a solar car that I manufactured by myself with students of Stanford and Berkeley. Luckily, the city was not involved in that project to harass me. So when I appealed the order of Judge Whitley, which was incomplete, it was handwritten, the Court of Appeal rejected my appeal because the judgment was not final, and I was told by legal authority that an order that is not within a final judgment is not enforceable. In other words, the order to demolish my scaffolding was premature, and not only was premature, if the city council vote to make another lien on my property, it'll be another cause of action, and I have already 4 that have been accepted by the federal court. So you make your choice, but I'm saying you right now, this lien that you're going to put, plus the 2 previous liens that were put on my property for stealing my lab with my invention, and the second one for stealing my submarine and my building blocks and all my tool and my material, is also another cause of action. And also what I want to mention, and it's very important, is that I had asked for a stay, and the city disregarded the stay. And the legal implication here is going to cost the city, I think, more than what you would get from the lien on my property. And I'm warning you here, this is another cause of action, because Judge Whitley said one thing for certain in front of everybody, and it's on a court record. The city council doesn't make the law, and the city council is not the court. And in order to have a lien, it has to be a court order. Thank you.
Any other person like to comment on this? This public hearing is closed. Do I hear a motion?
I have a comment. I don't understand why we're charging to this lien overhead, which is calculated at 75% of the salary, and the salary is based on the time that staff people spent on this. So I think that I don't think that's appropriate, because it's not, it doesn't have anything, there's no connection as far as I can tell why the overhead is being charged. The other thing is that I think that it makes sense to charge to this lien the city's out-of-pocket costs, but I'm not comfortable charging for salary that the city would have incurred otherwise. The argument, of course, on the other side is that that's what the city staff time was spent doing, but my feeling is that that cost would be incurred anyway. So I'm prepared to move the $3,400 amount, but not the larger $8,500 amount. So that's my motion. My motion is that this lien be for the amount of $3,404.46.
I'll second that.
Is there a comment, Mike?
No, you're free to do that. Certainly staff time, and certainly the order, as well as city ordinances, allow the city to recover for city staff time spent sort of managing this cleanup. And then as it relates to the overhead, we normally do charge an overhead rate for employees' time that are charged, because that generally relates to some of the management who oversee some of these things, such as myself, and you don't see my time billed there. So that's why there is this overhead rate that we also apply. But obviously you're free to to extract from that as you please.
And let me make it clear that I'm not questioning the power of the city to include these amounts in the lien. I'm not questioning the power, the legal power. I'm simply, as one council member, I am exercising discretion, and so I'm looking at this figure and I am mitigating it. And let me just say, in a larger sense, I've told Mr. Carpio that I think he could do a better job taking care of his property. Why? Whether that's because I'm a bourgeois and I think that grass should be clipped at a certain height, I don't know. But Mr. Carpio, I've told you that. I think you could do a better job. But also, I think that we could do better with this controversy. Now, some of my colleagues, you've told me that there's been great effort in the past to resolve this short of the courts, and maybe that's the case. But it's a real waste of resources to have this controversy go this far. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not excusing Mr. Carpio. I think, like I said, I think he could do a better job with his property. But this is not the time and place to try and resolve this, but I just want to take the opportunity to say that it's going down the wrong path. And I understand that this has been a long period, but it would be nice to get us off of this track. I don't know how, but that is my greater wish. So my motion is to lien the property for the amount of $3,404.46.
Mayor
I have a
Davis?
question.
Okay.
Vice Mayor Atkins.
Okay. So, I'd like to understand a little more fully why you don't think staff time should be compensated, because they could be spending their time doing other things, and having to deal with the abatement is taking their time away from things that they could be doing. So I don't understand why you want to exclude staff costs, for direct staff time.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not saying that the city doesn't have the power to do that.
No,
and I'm reserving the right to vote to impose.
You're not
those.
answering my question.
Your question is why in this particular case?
Yeah,
in
why
this
don't
particular
you want
case?
to try to collect the cost of staff time?
In this particular case, I think that I don't see the city as having completely clean hands with this controversy. And it's not a specific thing, it's not a legal thing. I just see that that the city could do this a little bit better. And like I said, I don't know if that is possible. I've been told by my colleagues that all attempts have been made to resolve this short of litigation, and that this individual is refusing to accept any kind of advances to resolve this. So that having had that all said, I'm simply saying that I see here the total power of the city being exercised, the maximum amount being exercised, and I, as a council member, am trying to mitigate it so that it's not the total power, but it is, a third of the total power. That's all I can tell you. That's about as precise as I can be.
Mayor Davis?
Yes.
I just have a comment. I understand what you're trying to do, John, and I appreciate it in one sense. I'm going to vote no on your motion, and the reason I'm going to vote no on it, if this was the first time that we dealt with this, I might have a different attitude, but this has been an ongoing problem for years, and the staff of this city has put innumerable hours into dealing with these ongoing nuisance problems, and the message has simply never gotten through. And saying to Mr. Carpio, we think you could do better, has not gotten through to him. So he chooses to continue to have his property be in a certain condition. In a sense, it's a form of, he thinks he is entitled to do that as a property right or free expression, and essentially it's civil disobedience, and I certainly respect someone's right to be civilly disobedient, but, you know, when you violate a law, there's a price to be paid. And so I'm not for mitigating this at all. Frankly, I think it's a very reasonable amount that's being charged for staff time, and it's probably a small portion of that which was actually spent.
Ruth, did you want to comment further on that?
I feel similarly to Dick, because I think that this history goes back 30 years, over 30 years.
But what's the goal? Is the goal that we lien this property so that, I don't, generally, when you lien property, you are doing so with the intention of collecting it, and if it's been a 30-year period, then has there been a 30-year period of liens placed on this property? I mean,
Yes.
obviously, okay, well,
It goes back to the 70s.
Fine, but obviously that has failed because a lien that was placed on the property in the 70s has not been paid. And so what is the goal of the lien? What is the goal? Is it retributive? Is that the goal? Because this person is engaging in civil disobedience, we are going to lien the person as punishment. It's not working. It's not working. So why is it that the city council continues to use a tool that's not working? What is the goal?
Well, I don't think cutting the lien down and then saying, please don't do this anymore, is going to be any more effective. So
Let me just make a comment here. And Michael Gina, you might want to jump in if possible. I think it is true in the past that the city did not take the rigid or the proper steps. Michael Gina has come into this case and has ordered the way we are doing this. Now, I would ask you a question, John. The whole intent of this is to cure blight in this city. I think you might feel a little differently if Mr. Carpio's house was adjacent to your house. We're trying to cure blight. We went down, I would say we have made mistakes in the past. This $8,000 doesn't even begin to touch the amount of staff time that has been spent on one piece of property in this city. And you're quite right. The results have been abysmal. We are on a different track now, and Michael, if you'd like to speak to that different track. If I could hear from Michael Gina, please.
Nora, you asked me a question.
I retract the question.
Okay.
Could you just explain briefly, Michael Gina, the process that we followed, which is different from what had been done before?
Certainly, this process is different than previous actions which have resulted in the previous liens being assessed against the property, in the sense that the prior liens were a end result in and of themselves as a result of essentially an administrative proceeding, where the end result was the imposition of the lien. This particular lien is different because it's the result of an order which is resulting from ongoing litigation. So the placement of the lien on the property is not the end result. There is still ongoing litigation regarding the code violations on Mr. Carpio's property.
Yeah.
The end result being to address the continuing code violations.
Yeah. And I would just say one other thing, John, in response to a question that you asked, what is the goal? I mean, if Mr. Carpio's not going to get the message, he's not going to get the message. But it's also saying to the taxpayers of Emeryville, you have been unduly taxed relative to having to spend time on this person who is not getting the message. And at some point in time, when this piece of property is sold, you'll get back some of the taxpayers' money that went to support the work that got done to do this. So I just think it's a matter of fairness.
I think a taxpayer, obviously there are some then in Emeryville that would embrace that rationale. But I think Nora's right that the goal is to abate blight. And Nora, I think I would feel the same if Andre's house was next to mine. I would tell him that he's not doing a good job taking care of his property, and I've
For
told him
30
that.
years?
Yes, for 30 years.
Can we
see,
call the
but
roll and vote on your motion?
But I don't think that leaning the property will abate the blight.
Well,
And
we're certainly here to express our opinions. Karen, would you call the roll on Councilmember? No, the public hearing is closed. Councilman.
Right to speak. You are stealing my stuff, and you do what you are doing illegally, and everybody knows about it. You bunch of thieves. That's what you are.
Mr.
You bunch of thieves.
You're out of order.
I'm not out of order. You are out of order. You are out of order. You are out of order.
Mr. Carpio,
Yes,
sit down.
you are a bunch of thieves. This is right here, like he does. He chooses candidate to have the power to do what he wants. He chooses a city manager to have, so his city manager will do what he wants. And he does all kind of things. You are the same thing.
Mr.
Yeah, you are.
You are.
Hey.
Whoa.
Jeannie, will you remove him?
Thief!
Would you continue to call the roll, City Clerk?
That's a new one, huh?
Councilmember Bukowski.
No.
Councilmember Fricke.
No.
Councilmember Cassis.
No.
Wait.
No, this is on John's motion.
John's motion.
Oh, this is John's motion.
John's motion to abate, to cut the amount in half, which Ken seconded.
Correct.
That's
All
what
right, can we continue the roll call?
Councilmember Atkin.
No?
Vice Mayor Atkin.
No?
And Mayor Davis.
No. I would entertain a motion on this resolution.
I move the staff recommendation.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Call the roll.
Councilmember Bukowski.
Aye.
Councilmember Fricke.
Aye.
Councilmember Cassis.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Atkin.
Aye.
Mayor Davis.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Green, very much for your efforts. Okay, we're moving along to the resolution of the City Council of the City of Emeryville approving the Traffic Facilities Impact Fee Program Report through June 30th, 2006. Karen, very good to see you.
Good evening, Mayor. I'm sorry, Mayor Davis and council
Whatever.
members.
Whatever.
I'm here to talk about the traffic impact fee report. On December 19th, staff provided a report to City Council on the city's traffic facilities impact fee program for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2006. We found that there continues to be a reasonable relationship between the need for the traffic facility improvements described in the traffic mitigation fee study conducted in 1998 and the impacts from the types of development described in the fee study for which the impact fee is charged, as well as a reasonable relationship between the use of the impact fee for construction of the improvements identified in the fee study. That report was made within 180 days from the close of fiscal year 2005-2006 as required by Government Code Section 66,000. That Mitigation Act requires that the city review the report at a public meeting no less than 15 days after the information is made available to the public. As a result, we are here tonight to consider public comment on the report. Upon conclusion of any comment, staff recommends the City Council approve the Traffic Facility Impact Fee Report and adopt a corresponding resolution.
Thank you, Karen. Any comments or questions from the council?
Yeah, I'm just going to make my continuing objection to these fees. Until we can get an audit of these traffic counts, I have to vote against these fees. There has to be some check and balances on the amounts of money that's charged by the city, and we can't ever get an audit of these fees, so...
The public hearing is open. Anyone who wishes to speak? Public hearing is closed. Do I hear a motion from the council?
Move approval.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Bukowski?
No.
Councilmember Fricke?
Stepped out.
Excused. Sorry. Councilmember Cassis?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Atkin?
Aye.
Mayor Davis?
Aye. Moving down to policy item.
Excuse me, just
Please,
could I
I
ask
just-
a quick question of the city attorney? Does the fact that that was a public hearing and Councilmember Fricke's not here for the vote affect the outcome? No. Okay, thank you.
Please let the record, I told the mayor before we started, I need to excuse myself now at this time.
Okay.
So I'll be going.
Okay, take care of yourself. Okay, discussion of the City of Emeryville personnel rules and procedures. Would anyone object if we moved that to the February meeting?
Yeah, I had asked for that to be the second meeting in
Oh,
February.
well, okay. Go ahead. Mr. Biddle?
You wanted you want to continue it?
Yes,
No,
the second
no.
meeting in February. That's when I requested it be on. Not
All
for,
right,
not for this
continue
meeting.
to second meeting in February.
Yeah.
Mayor, hold on a second. Jeannie, Ruth is going to leave. Could you escort her out? Excuse me. Jeannie, could you escort Ruth out?
Michael.
Oh, Michael's going to do that. Thank you.
Okay, appropriate responses, this is item C, 7C, to public comments, inquiries provided under citizens to be heard. Your staff report was pretty explanatory. Does the council have any questions of Mr. Biddle on this?
I don't.
Nope.
Okay. Do you just want to make a comment, Mike? So your recommendation is not to put that wording on there?
Correct. I think
Redundant.
the wording we would have to put on there would be so lengthy that.
All right. Nice try.
Can I ask something along these lines? Can it be changed to residents to be heard, or to public comment? We heard. Is it reasonable to think that maybe we're hearing from someone who is not a citizen of the United States? Is that?
No. I mean, in terms of limiting who you can hear from? No,
Well,
anybody?
it says citizens to be heard. Are we talking about citizens of the United States, or are these citizens of the world? Why can't we just call it public comment?
We can call it that.
Anybody have any problem with
Problem with
that?
the Brown Act.
Public comment.
Yeah,
Call it public
In
comment.
other jurisdictions, it's called open forum.
Or that, yeah.
I like public comment.
I like public comment.
Yeah, public
We'll just
comment.
change it to public comment.
Thank you.
Okay.
Otherwise, we violated it rather.
Right, right. Okay, let's just go through these administration items. Entertain a motion on the appointments of Thordy Ashley and Joyce Land Myers.
So moved, second.
Without exception, motion passes. Appointment of Elaine Kirk. Do I hear a
So
motion?
moved.
Second.
Without exception, appointed. Resolution of the City Council appointing members to serve on the Bike Ped Committee.
So moved.
I'd like to make a change here on the requirements for the bicycle
Oh, yeah,
pedestrian
it should be
committee.
pedestrians.
Betsy Cooley brought up a very good point. Why should we exclude pedestrians?
Yeah, on a pedestrian
So can we
committee.
change that on the requirements there to say either bicyclists or pedestrians?
I agree with that, but do we need to do that when that item is on the agenda? Or
Well,
can we-
it is on the agenda right now.
But there's nothing that gives anybody notice that we're talking about changing the definitions of what committee
Well-
members.
I don't think anybody's going to object to including pedestrians
What
on
do
the
you say,
pedestrians
Michael?
committee.
I think we're revising the roster, so, I mean,
We're
we are
revising the roster.
That's cool.
We're
I mean,
look-
I
we're
favor
looking
what you're
at-
trying to do. I just want to be sure we're
Yeah.
okay.
No, I think we're fine.
All right.
Thank you.
Now we're going to go back to the consent calendar. And in the future, gentlemen, can we pay attention when the consent calendar
Well,
comes up?
sometimes you go through it quickly and it just
All
can't
right,
get the papers turned.
what do you want to pull off?
I just want to pull off the traffic committee. I just wanted to make one small addition to the second reading of the ordinance. I wanted to add
Which item, Jim?
traffic E. Second reading of the ordinance amending chapter 1 titled municipal code regarding the traffic committee membership.
Oh, wait a minute, it's not item E, you're looking at
S,
item S?
excuse me, item S.
Hold on, let me get to it.
Oh.
Okay, now, do we need a, Mike, do we need a motion for
Well,
reconsideration?
we need a formal motion to reconsider.
Yeah, I
Well,
moved,
but which items are we reconsidering?
we're reconsidering,
Well, S is the one we're
S
recommending.
is in
John's
sugar?
got it- John's got one also.
Wait a minute,
No.
you want S
S,
as in
right,
sugar?
right.
What do you want?
L is in Larry and P is in Paul.
L and P, okay. Motion to reconsider?
I move that we reconsider the consent calendar.
Second.
Well, then let's just pick S, L, and P, so we don't have
Okay,
to do the whole thing.
good idea.
LP,
Is
yeah,
that a
S-
second?
Yeah, second.
Without exception, that passes. Okay, item S, Councilmember Bukowski.
I just wanted to add, let's see if we can get that up here, where it's to the responsibilities of the public works, I wanted to add painted curbs where they had inventory of streets and everything else. I wanted inventory of painted curbs because actually, Public Works was supposed to come back with a listing of all the painted curbs in the city and how they're designated, and it's never happened, so it should be in the requirement.
No, you've lost me completely on that.
Well, we have lots of painted curbs in the city that are still painted and no longer applicable, so we're supposed to have an inventory of all the painted curbs in the city.
But all we're talking about here is the traffic committee
Yeah,
membership.
but it says that what the duties are of the Public Works.
I have no objection. Can we do that, Michael?
Well, it'll have to come back for another second reading, so we can make the change, and it'll be, so we're amending essentially that first reading. We'll bring it back for a new second reading.
All right.
Yeah, I'd like to do that.
That's
do we
your
have-
motion?
Yeah.
Well, I need the specific language, and I'm not following where
Okay,
you're at.
let me find the item here.
I can't find mine either.
Can we take P? It's fairly quick.
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
P
L.
is in Paul. This is the appointment of Finance Committee to prioritize city's revenue enhancement measures. The reason I pulled this is because under the discussion on page 1, second paragraph, second sentence, it says, and again, this is the city hiring a polling firm to take a poll or survey of residents or voters, likely voters, I assume. Okay, second paragraph, second sentence, it says, the consultant identified the importance of prioritizing our revenue measures to avoid placing too many of them in one election. My understanding of a polling firm is it's a firm that engages in the science of polling to the extent that it's a science. And that sentence is not so much science, but politics. It's about whether we should put on so many measures, and it seems like it's not really within the purview of a polling firm, and it seems like the city should be hiring a political consultant to work with the polling firm. When this came up in the Finance Committee, I said that it appeared to me that if you hire a polling firm, you need to have that firm working in conjunction
Right, that's right,
with a
absolutely right.
political consultant. But now I'm seeing that the strategy, as laid out in the staff report, is for the polling firm to do the whole thing, which I think is a mistake.
It's not right.
Well, isn't that something we could discuss in the Finance Committee?
Well, yes, but I pulled this item because this staff report suggests that there's not going to be any political consultant hired, that this is it, this is the whole thing. So I'm happy to discuss it in the Finance Committee, but time is running short. So time is running short, and I think that we need to get a political consultant on board quickly.
Yeah, I can say that the Lead Board just recently did a study about increasing the CSA fee, and we had a political consultant and a polling firm, two separate individuals working together, and that's how it should be done.
If I could just provide some information, I think we have until July in order to make decisions about measures that go on the November ballot. So your next finance committee we have scheduled for February. I think we could add this to the agenda, and I think if the committee wants to make a recommendation to council, we could get it back on the council agenda probably the second meeting of February. So I think you have time to talk at the committee level.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that we do have time, but the July deadline is the deadline of deciding, and there is a lot to be done before that deadline. For example, the question that's put on the ballot is crucial. And you need to know that question so that you can poll on that question. And you want to have a political consultant on board to advise you on that question. So it's like in litigation. You want to have an outline of your closing argument, but you want to have that at the beginning of the discovery process. So I'm looking forward to discussing this, Mayor Davis, at our next Finance Committee meeting and moving it to the second meeting of the City Council in
All right,
February.
so the original vote will stand. We passed that originally.
Yes.
All right, so we can move along past that. And the next one you had was
It's
L.
L is in Larry. Okay, this one I pulled. This is it's a status report on various capital projects, and I wanted to go through this in some detail, and I apologize for taking the time at this late hour, but I requested a status report and had the detail that I expected been in here. I wouldn't have to take this time. We get these monthly progress reports, and when I talked about a status report, I was thinking about something similar to what we get there, and that is, very definitive idea of what's coming next. And so I do need to go through this because I need greater detail from the staff, and that can occur either now or at some later staff
John,
report.
could I encourage you, since this is a public works item, could I encourage us to take that time to flesh out what it is you need in the public works meeting? Have those comments at the public works meeting on Thursday morning, and where there's deficiencies, we'll try to see if we can't beef it up.
Can I just go through my list, and I'll try?
Well, I'll tell you, but certainly you have that prerogative, but as a matter of courtesy to the rest of the people who may or may not be interested in this, this is a public works item that we could work very intensely on and devote a lot of time to early in the morning when we're all a little fresher.
Okay. Let me just review it and pick out the ones that I think need attention now, and I'll try and do the rest. Do what you suggested for the rest. One of the things that's on this list is the Ashby interchange improvements, and the
Item 1?
number 1. Yes, number 1. It reports that the status is environmental clearance preliminary plan approval to be completed June 2007. Now, when this was last before us, there was a request by the staff to approve the project with all these at-grade crossings for pedestrians and bicycles. And rest assured, you will have your opportunity to make those changes that improve the pedestrian access later. But under next phase, it says preparation of plans and specifications. And so that sounds like that opportunity is quickly evaporating. So my question to the interim city manager is, are we going to have an opportunity to address these at-grade changes, or?
Yes, it will be back before the council.
And when will it be? Is that before the June 2007 that's reported in the current status?
We can certainly do that, yes.
The biggest
Okay.
question that I had about that project is what is the status of the environmental review?
We could come back to the council with a status report on this entire project and answer all
Good
of those
idea.
kinds of questions.
Excellent idea.
Now, in the progress report for December 2006, there's a discussion about this project, and I would like staff to correct me in my understanding of the status. My understanding is that Emeryville's, the reason for Emeryville wanting this interchange to be redone is to improve access between Shellmound Street and Interstate 80. So, for example, if you are on Shellmound and you want to go...
Southbound Interstate 80.
Yes, well, south or westbound.
Well, there is direct access through Aquatic Park now.
Right.
The difficulty is getting people out on Shellmound and then being able to go south.
Right.
West to San Francisco.
Well, it's south. It is south,
South to
but
me.
it's called west.
Right.
Because it's an
It's
interstate
south.
highway. Okay.
Technically west.
Well, the other movement that is being sought is to go from westbound, which is really southbound Interstate 80, to Shellmound. So those two things do not currently exist. And the whole raison d'etre of this project is to establish that. But my reading of the progress report is that those two things will not be done. In fact, that there's this term that it has popped up. It's called Minimum Project Alternative, MPA. And by the way, this report indicates that this interchange is going to cost $18 million. And for $18 million, the minimum project alternative will not have those connections. And my first question is that, am I reading this correctly, that those connections won't occur until sometime after the year 2030?
Well, what that report is talking about is a potential phasing program, which we haven't brought to you for any kind of approval. It's just something that's being considered and discussed on a staff level at this point. And so I'd like to thoroughly answer all of these kinds of questions in the context of a study session where we can have a more detailed exchange back and forth about it.
Okay, but is it, am I reading it correctly in that these Shellmound things are not going to happen?
Yeah,
Is that-
there are certain, I don't have the phasing plan in front of me, but there are certain movements that don't occur in the first phase that's been drafted. But I don't think that that's an official phasing by any means. This is something that needs to come back to the council.
Okay.
Will you have Caltrans here for that study session?
We could do that, sure.
That'd be excellent. That'd be excellent.
Okay, let me just take a minute to go through this. Number nine. This one is the study that I alluded to earlier, the $15,000 study, that the City Council essentially spent $15,000 to obtain an outside consultant's report. And my understanding is that that report, the consultant prepared that report and delivered it to the city staff. And now it is being editorialized by the city staff, and it's going back and forth. And it seems to me that if the City Council wanted the city staff's opinion, the City Council would not have spent $15,000 to get this report. And so my request is that the City Council have the unadulterated report from this consultant, and I'm wondering if that's possible.
Well, I think you're asking a fundamental question here about good staff work. I believe that it's staff's duty to make sure that anything that comes before the council in the way of staff work, whether it's done internally or whether it's done by external consultants, is accurate, has correct spelling in it, meets the objectives of what the council asked for in the scope of services. And those are some of the flaws that are in this initial report that we're correcting. We're not changing the recommendation. We're not changing the fundamental content. We're making it into a top quality professional report of the standard that I insist on before it gets turned over to council. Pure and simple. There's nothing devious going on here.
Well, there are two things. The first is, and I appreciate the description of what changes are occurring, but one of the things that would be helpful is if in fact the work product of the consultant required staff time to get it up to a professional level, then that would be helpful, valuable to know, because then maybe the city council would not choose that particular consultant. So if it's in fact made better through the staff work, and then we say, oh, well, this work was great, let's hire them again, that would be a mistake.
Yeah, I don't think that's genuine. I think we should see the product as presented by the consultant, and then if the staff has comments, they could submit those comments and suggest the changes. But if we don't see the direct work of the consultant, then we don't have any real idea of what level of professionalism they're operating on.
Well, the report's almost done. We're about to turn it over to the various committees. I think you'll have an opportunity to review it very shortly here. And if you're not satisfied with the work product, or if you're not satisfied with the content or the recommendations, then the various committees that are going to comment on it, and then ultimately the council that will receive it, can ask for changes to be made to the report.
But for the future, can we get the genuine staff report, whatever report we pay to have done, and then if you want to make, a separate sheet where you make comments about it, that's appropriate, but I just think...
Well,
Yeah,
I
guess we
don't
could,
agree with that. I don't need to do that.
I guess we could
What-
do
what's
that,
the
but I mean, that's
topic?
part of what you pay staff to do, is to do staff work. That's staff work.
There's a concern that staff might, well, the question was raised is that staff is editing the work of the consultants, and Patrick says absolutely we are, in terms of the professional quality of the job, not the recommendations that are being made. And so I don't need to see the initial report that comes from the consultant. I mean, I've worked with this staff for a very long time, and I don't think they've ever hidden the ball or played games where they massage an outside consultant's report so that it becomes something other than it was.
Well-
I do think it's a good idea, however, if in staff's communications with the council, in the staff report that ultimately accomplishes, or that accompanies it, that if the quality of work that came from the consultant was lacking in some areas and required more staff time than should have been reasonable, I think it's good to let us know that. That solves that problem about whether we want to hire them in the future.
But it's not a genuine work if it's got the name of the consultant on it, it's not a genuine work product once it's altered in any way. I mean, it's almost like it's...
Okay. Why don't we do this? There's only 4 of us here tonight, and why don't we put this, whether we want in the future consultants' reports to come unabridged directly to council, or whether we're willing to let them be vetted through the process that currently goes on. Why don't we put that on for a future agenda item to be discussed?
I don't need that. I don't need that policy discussion. I just want this particular report to see the quality so that I can decide whether this particular consultant should be hired again, because this is a pedestrian bicycle firm, and there are a lot of pedestrian bicycle projects. I would like to say, hey, this guy did a good job, let's hire him again. So
Okay.
What
Well,
is
but
the
Ken
problem here?
had broadened.
This is raw data, and anything that the city pays for is certainly can be, looked at by any member of the city council. Is anyone suggesting that's not true?
No, what Patrick has, the point, Patrick, in your absence, Mayor, is that staff does what they consider to be good staff work, and when they get a report that's got misspellings and things are disorganized and things aren't, and the scope hasn't covered what they said, then they go back and work it among themselves before it goes out to the committees. And John just expressed some concern about that process.
Do you have a
And-
specific,
Well, listen, why don't we solve this in this case, since, John, you're saying that your scope isn't all these reports in general? Why don't you just give John a
No,
copy of
I'm
the
not
original
interested
report?
in I do not want to review us, I just want this.
No, I'm just saying, my suggestion is just give him this one. Let's move on.
and what would
Let's
be
go
the
home.
objection to that?
That's fine. I don't have the original. I threw mine out because, we're doing another draft, but we'll see if the consultant still has it.
The
If he
consultant
does,
would
we'll
have
give
it,
to him.
sure.
They surely would have it in their computer. Okay. Department heads.
We still have the ordinance item S.
Oh,
The-
Ken?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so the language that Councilmember Bukowski wanted to include is under Section 4-9.01, Transportation Committee Duties, Membership and Procedures, subsection G, and it presently reads Traffic Signs and Signals Inventory. And we may want to change the title of that, but anyway, it reads, the Department of Public Works shall maintain an inventory of all traffic signs, and we would add comma, and then strike the word and then would continue signals, and then we would add the following language, and painted sidewalks. Is that?
Painted curbs.
I'm sorry, painted curbs.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Regulating.
Yeah.
So if there is acceptance of that language, if I could have a motion to adopt new first reading.
Yeah, okay, we'll move adoption of the first reading.
Well,
We have
maybe
a
we ought to
second
vote on
here?
the amendment first. Don't we need to vote whether we want to make the
No.
change or not? What do you want to say?
Yeah, well, that was, if you want to make that change, then we would approve a new first reading.
Okay, I move that we change the language as suggested.
Second.
Without exception,
Okay, so then,
Now I move the
Four
first
votes
reading.
aye.
I read the first reading of the ordinance.
as amended.
Yeah,
as
and
amended.
so it'll come back at the next meeting as a second reading, and we
Right.
will, given our rules, it will appear as an administrative item since Councilmember Atkin wasn't here.
Okay.
And
All right.
and I seconded that.
Thank you.
all right. Department heads. Mr. Van Dyke.
Mayor Davis, City Council. Earlier this month, I submitted my letter of resignation to the interim city manager, Pat O'Keefe. This decision comes with mixed feelings. In my time with Emeryville, which is part of a 35-year history of working with municipalities and local government, Emeryville has been the best job I've ever had. It's the only city I've worked for that has a vision of what they are to become, and they have maintained that vision and accomplished magnificently. It has been the most rewarding, challenging job I've ever had. I love this city. On the other hand, as recently as 6 months ago, I had planned to work perhaps another 3 years. However, as I approached December and my 65th birthday, it's a milestone. It's 12 years with the city. And I found that I was having to work more and more, and that it was taking away from my free time. Turning that age is a time of reflection, both backwards and forwards. The challenges and what this city is accomplishing were the reasons for my working. I found that it was taking time away from my family, and it was taking away options for myself to encounter other possibilities, to take advantage of the fact that I'm in good health and still like to expand my horizons, and that I need to exercise that opportunity. In my reflections, I feel I have accomplished my major objectives here at Emeryville. When I came, there were really only 3 people who were still here, and that was Maurice, Valerie Maxwell, and Mike Mahoney. The challenge I had on coming here was mostly centered on doing projects. I think you can see from the list that was included in the council agenda that we do projects. We do a lot of projects. You won't see projects coming out like that, of that magnitude, in cost, of that complexity, from cities much larger than ours. And that's because of the staff. They do the work, and they deserve the credit for what they've accomplished. The other thing is that one of the things that was important early on is that you wanted a maintenance division that took ownership, that could provide quality work efficiently, effectively, so that one would not be able to tell what improvements were maintained privately and which were maintained by the public sector. I think we've accomplished that. My leaving, my greatest achievement, I think, and I even can't take responsibility for that, but I'm leaving you with the best staff that I can. They will carry on. They will continue to perform and outperform what they're doing now. It's the best time for me, the best time for the city, for me to go on. I love this city. I love the people that work for me. I love the rest of the people in the city. I respect the city council and the opportunities you have provided for me. I I don't think I'll go on to work for another city. I wanted to retire from this city, and going to some other city would just not be the same. I don't know there's more I can say, but I'm not very good at this kind of thing. I'm leaving. I'm leaving in a short time because I don't like long goodbyes. And I know my staff will continue to provide what you've come to expect from Public Works. And I look forward to reading more about Emeryville in the newspapers and how they keep things working. Thank you for the opportunity. It's been great.
Any other department heads? Any council members?
I have a number of things, I'm sorry.
Here we go home. Here, I want to go home. Go ahead. No.
Continue,
Thank you.
Councilmember Fricke.
I'm sorry, but I do have my folder, and I stick things in my folder for member comments. I'm going to find the ones that I think are the most important. I won't go through them all. Here's one. This meeting tonight, the city's website had the entire agenda staff reports in the PDF formats that I had been asking for. And Dick, I'm looking at you because I'm trying to think of how to explain this to you.
That's okay, I just won't listen to this one.
Okay, but it's important. What can I tell you? It's important. Dick, we live in a digital era. And if it's not digital, it doesn't exist.
That's how I
And
feel
so,
about
let me just say this. I'm sorry, I missed what you said.
I said, that's how I feel about it.
Okay. Well, we reached a little step at this meeting. This meeting marked returning to where we were a year ago. And so I wanted to mark that. That's important. But I also want to throw in a caveat, and that is for people who know what I'm talking about, the PDF was searchable, and that's what we were, where we were a year ago, but the images are not there. So for example, the item for the pedestrian bike bridge, the staff report was there, and if you wanted to search, you'd find that staff report if you searched for pedestrian, let's say, the word pedestrian. But unfortunately, the images aren't there, and I think that the adage that a picture is worth 1,000 words should be applied to the documents that the city provides online. So I'd like to keep working on getting those images in there, and also not to have them simply scanned images, but to get images straight from the digital to the digital. I also want to say that I noticed that the traffic count on Peabody was installed, and that's good. That's something I requested. That's part of my desire to see that get some traffic calming. And my question is, what is the time frame for that traffic count? How long is it going to be there? So first off, how long will we be counting? Pat, do you know how long we'll be counting?
No, I don't, but I can find that out and give you a report at the Public Works Committee.
And the other thing is, I ride through there 4 times a day, and so I'm curious if bicycles are counted, because if they are, then it's a little bit, the number will be a little bit misleading. I wanted to talk about the on-ramp survey. I mentioned that earlier, and I wanted to encourage residents to participate. There's a link to it at my homepage, johnfricky.com, and I wanted to share with my colleagues that I've gotten some great comments from people throughout the city. I'll probably run the survey for a few more weeks, and so I intend to come back to a city council meeting in February with the results. But one person, a lot of people say, well, is it possible to do both, the on-ramp and the pedestrian path? And one person suggested constructing the path over the on-ramp. So we have creative residents in the city. I shudder to think what that would cost, but I'll share all those ideas with you. And we talked about the traffic counts. The last thing is that I've been on the city council for over a year. Every meeting we pledge allegiance to the flag. I don't do that. I love my country, but I just don't think the Pledge of Allegiance is the best way to express that patriotism. And so I just wanted to ask, and this is the last thing, I just wanted to ask my colleagues, is it that it's a practice that has gone on for a long time and everyone just engages in this practice because it's kind of become tradition, or whether there's a heartfelt desire to recite the Pledge of Allegiance every meeting. I'm wondering if there's some other way, some other thing that we could do to express our patriotism. I just don't. Yeah, so that's my question. Is it gotten to be out of habit because I think that we could do better?
Well, if it means anything to you, Nora and I have not said "under God" for the last 20 years during the pledge, if that means anything to anybody.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand that objection, but I'm looking at it not so much. I'm looking at it from a creative perspective. I'm looking at it, because is there something? I mean,
I wasn't objecting. I was just making a comment. But what would your alternative suggestion be?
Well, I'm ready to sing the Star Spangled Banner. I'm ready to.
Absolutely not.
No, I'm ready to recite a poem. I mean,
we're here to conduct the business of the city. We're not here to just ramble on and on. So if you
if
have...
we're here to conduct the business of the city, then my question is, why are we pledging allegiance to the flag?
That's your question. Councilmember Bukowski answered you at this point in time. I have no interest in answering that question.
Okay, can I raise it again?
Councilmember Cassis, do you feel like answering the question and continuing on an interminable discussion?
No, but if John wants to come up with some suggested alternatives, I'd certainly consider them, but I think it's more than just tradition.
Or if John doesn't want to say the pledge, just don't say the pledge.
Well, I'm engaging my colleagues in why it is that it's
No, you are not engaging your
Okay.
colleagues. You're talking
Okay.
at your colleagues.
My question
Not
then
necessarily
is,
engaging.
do you want me to bring this up at another meeting, or are you
Oh,
simply
my Lord.
closing off discussion?
Put it on the agenda.
Oh, you have anything further, Mr. Fricke?
I said that's the last thing.
Good. This meeting is adjourned.
We got to try one more time.